After defeating Alta-Face in an intense battle, order has been restored to Alinter, and Natsu and his team have returned to Earthland. On the other hand, it appears that Selene tricked Suzaku into bringing him to Diabolos to kill their master, George. In this video, we will discuss Selene's plan and why she targeted Diabolos, and we will also learn about a revelation concerning one of the dragon gods. Get ready because this is the best arc yet. Skarion, Mad Mole, Kiria, and Suzaku stared at Selene with extraordinary fear on their faces as she stepped on their master. Suzaku thought it was unacceptable because the moon dragon god didn't take him seriously. Selene explained that Suzaku was mistaken. She did take him seriously to an extent and admitted that in her human form, she stood no chance against Suzaku. Suzaku declared that to avenge his master, he would kill Selene. Selene stopped him, saying that was enough. If she fought an opponent of that level, her power in her form was assured. Suzaku clicked his tongue in frustration, and Selene added that, as she said before, she acknowledged his strength and killing him would be a waste. Selene asked if there were others like Suzaku and his guild, and a frightened Mad Mole confirmed there were 3 more. Selene was pleased to hear this and commented on how terrifying humans who consumed the flesh of dragons were. Selene declared that she would now become the master of their guild. Their eyes widened in shock, but Suzaku immediately protested, asking why she ridiculed his guild like that. Selene closed her eyes briefly and then used gravity magic to force them to kneel before her, causing Skarion, Mad Mole, and Suzaku to feel immense pressure. Kiria suddenly shouted for Selene to stop joking and charged at her, declaring that their guild specialized in dragon hunting. Suzaku shouted for Kiria to stop, but it was too late. Selene summoned a moon inside the room, enveloping the surroundings in its light. They were all shocked and Kiria was swallowed by the light. Kiria vanished before their eyes, causing them to be worried and angry at Selene. As she transformed back into her human form, Selene explained that she didn't kill Kiria. She just sent her to another plane. She pointed out that she didn't hate tomboyish girls like Kiria, and Suzaku demanded that she return Kiria to them. Selene smiled with a glint in her eye and said it depended on their response, asking them to acknowledge her as the guild's master. Frustration was evident on Suzaku's face, and Selene added that she had good news for them. She had information about the dragons they wanted to hunt and only asked for their assistance. Skarion and Mad Mole's eyes widened at this, and they asked what Selene's goal was. Selene responded that her goal was distortion, confusing Skarion. She explained that distortion gives rise to power. A dragon and those who eat dragons would come together to defeat other dragons. This type of distortion would result in the power of the world. Suzaku asked if Selene's purpose was to defeat other dragons, and she confirmed that there were 4 dragons in that world blocking her path. The wood dragon god Aldoran, who died a few days ago. The water dragon god Merkfovia, who had lost his power and become human, so they didn't need to hunt him. Their only remaining problems were the gold dragon god Viernes and the fire dragon god Ignia. Selene said that as long as those 2 were not killed, her world could never be complete. Mad Mole asked what she meant by world, and she pointed out that it was a world without dragons, a world filled only with humans. Skarion asked what Selene would gain from this, and she replied that she would live in that world as a human with the most powerful strength. Skarion then asked if she wanted to become human, and Selene clarified that it wasn't because she wanted to be one. It was simply the providence of that age. The Age of Dragons had ended 400 years ago. The 5 dragon gods in Acnologia extended their demise by 400 years, but now it was time to truly end the Age of Dragons. Fear was evident on the faces of Skarion, Mad Mole, Kiria, and Suzaku as Selene continued explaining that for 400 years, the 5 of them had watched over each other while distorting the world. Their strengths were perfectly balanced, and if they fought, the worst case would result in the deaths of 2 of them. Additionally, there might be others waiting to profit from their battle, making it a significant waste. However, she finally realized the key to winning that battle, and that is humans. If the humans had the strength, they could defeat Viernes and Ignia. The other dragons didn't believe that humans possessed the power to defeat them, but she did. She was convinced after witnessing Suzaku's strength. If they worked together, they could change the world. The three members mentioned that despite that, they were still loyal to their master. Celine got serious again and reiterated that George was the enemy of her child. They should let go of a man who was crushed by her forefoot and was incapable of giving them orders. Suddenly, Celine cast a magic spell, and Kyria appeared out of thin air, shocking Skarion and the others. Celine added that beyond killing Viernes and Ignia, if they still wanted to avenge George, she would remain their enemy as long as they wished. But until that happened, they would be allies. They should be proud and feel superior because they had a dragon as their ally. Skarion and Madmol immediately knelt and accepted her terms, while Suzaku struggled but eventually lowered his pride and agreed. Celine smiled and ordered Madmol to bring the other Dark Dragon Slayer Knights. Their first order of business was to kill Elefsiria. Skarion was puzzled about who that was, so she explained that he was a human despite being a dragon, like Acnologia. She could kill him alone, but she wanted to see their power. After that, we moved to Dramil, at an inn where Natsu and his team were saying goodbye to Makarov, announcing they were leaving again. Makarov thought their stay was too short, so Urza explained that if they stayed longer, they wouldn't want to leave, and Lucy agreed, saying the bar felt like home. Mira informed them they would go sightseeing before returning to Magnolia. Juvia, on the verge of tears, didn't want Gray to leave, but Gray explained that he had important work to do. Juvia then said she would secretly follow him, to which Gray pointed out it wouldn't be a secret if she said it. Lily told Happy he looked forward to hearing about their travels. Jet and Droy commented that Wendy seemed to have grown a bit since they last saw her, thinking it must be her growing season. Wendy said she hadn't changed much, except for a short period. Soon, Natsu called for Wendy to move out, and they all bid farewell to their guildmates, saying they would meet again at the guild. Their guildmates wished them well and told them to return soon. In the next scene, Natsu and his team resumed their journey for the 100-year quest. Lucy and Wendy were speechless, not knowing where to go. Gray pointed out that even Celine was missing, and they had no idea where the other dragons were. Natsu shouted, asking what they should do next. Urza suggested they visit Elefsiria briefly to get some leads. In the next scene, we arrive at the Wizard Guild Magia Dragon. Lucy narrates that this was their starting point in the southern part of Giltina and that it is the first and oldest wizard guild in the world. Apparently, over 100 years ago, the guild was formed to unite and protect wizards against persecution. She added that as time passed, wizard guilds started appearing all over the world, including Fairy Tale. The founder of Magia Dragon, Elefsiria, lived alone in that guild and entrusted them with the 100 Years quest. They returned to Magia Dragon to report their progress. Before long, they arrived at Magia Dragon. Lucy commented that, as usual, the place was thick with ether nano, and Wendy said it looked like snow. Gray wondered what Elefsiria usually did, and Urza said it was a good question, adding that he had a surprisingly slovenly lifestyle. They saw Elefsiria staring at a circle with symbols of the dragon gods. Natsu called out to him, saying it had been a long time since they last met, and Happy noticed something. Gray and Lucy asked if something was wrong and if Elefsiria was feeling unwell. Elefsiria showed them what he was staring at and explained it was a tablet modeled after the 5 dragon gods. He pointed out the water dragon god, Merkfovia, and the wood dragon god, Aldoran, whom they had sealed. Urza asked if Elefsiria already knew about this, and Wendy asked if he learned about it using that tablet. Elefsiria explained that, for the first time in 100 years, people who could defeat any of the 5 dragon gods had appeared, and they had defeated 2 dragons. Happy boasted that it was just like they said, that he could count on them. Carla, with a poker face, asked if they really said that. Lucy explained that, in fact, Merkfovia turned out to be a good guy, and they only defeated Alderaan with the help of their guild. Eleftheria said that regardless of the reason, sealing 2 dragons was a praiseworthy achievement. He turned to them with a smile and said he knew he could count on them. In the next scene, they were eating together at Eleftheria's table, explaining what happened when they fought Selene. Eleftheria understood that they had driven Selene away, but Natsu shouted that it was a stupid samurai they met who drove her away. Urza added that the infuriating samurai was powerful beyond reason. This caught Eleftheria's attention, so Gray explained that he was a member of a guild called Diabolos. Eleftheria asked if they were talking about Suzaku, surprising Wendy, who asked if he knew him. Eleftheria explained that Diabolos is one of the current guilds in Guiltina, and Lucy was amazed, saying she didn't realize the guild of their opponents was famous. Happy asked if it was a dark guild, but Eleftheria said no, Diabolos was a fully fledged official guild. While their master George's behavior was deplorable, their work didn't break any laws. Carla found it strange, noting that they acted as if hunting dragons was their job. She wondered if the guild existed to complete the 100-year quest. Eleftheria stared at her, and Wendy asked if he also asked Diabolos to take on the 100 years quest. Eleftheria confirmed this, saying he spoke with George years ago. However, Diabolos did not exist back then, prompting Gray to ask what he meant. Eleftheria explained that Diabolos was a guild created in the wake of the 100 years quest. George killed all the surviving dragons except for the 5 dragon gods and ate their flesh. Soon, he became known as a dragon eater. That's when others began to follow and gather around him, thus forming Diabolos. Gray remarked that this was how they knew about the 5 dragon gods. Lucy questioned whether it was against the rules to share details about the 100-year quest. Eleftheria agreed, explaining that this was why the request was annulled and the rights were passed to another guild. Gray then asked if it was illegal for George to target the 5 dragon gods, and Eleftheria confirmed that it troubled him. Currently, the official rights belong to them. However, the real intention is that the client can be anyone who can fulfill the request. Though difficult to say, if sealing the 5 dragon gods was the goal, he decided to let Diabolos handle it. This angered Natsu, and Lucy pointed out the double standard. Gray was also irritated, feeling belittled. Urza calmed them down, saying if that was how their client felt, they should respect it. They couldn't do anything if their goal of sealing the calamitous dragons was the same, but if those people threatened their guild, it would be a different story. She would not tolerate anyone who dared to threaten her comrades. Natsu agreed, shouting that they would beat anyone who messed with them, echoed by Lucy and Gray. Eleftheria, trembling, explained that they knew the magic world had an inter-guild conflict ban treaty. Urza, annoyed, pointed out that if he brought that up, he should punish Diabolos for starting the conflict. Wendy tried to calm her down. Eleftheria fell silent, shrinking in size as he admitted she was right. And then he found himself between Lucy's melons again. Because of that, Natsu got angry with him and tried catching him between Lucy's breast while asking where he thought he was going, so Lucy repeated Natsu's question to him because of that. Eleftheria quickly left, and Gray commented that they understood what he was saying, but they just wanted him to understand what they were saying. Eleftheria remarked that he would just close his eyes to that matter and whispered that they should get along. Suddenly, his clock chimed, indicating the time. He mentioned that Hikage would be back soon. They asked who Hikage was, and Eleftheria explained that living alone was hard for a man his age, so Hikage took care of things for him. Hikage had gone shopping but usually returned at this time, and Eleftheria wanted to introduce him to them. Soon, something flew into the room through the window, shouting about an emergency. It was Hikage, whom Eleftheria acknowledged, asking for his report. Lucy and Happy were shocked to see a talking crow. Hikage circled in the air, explaining that it was a dire emergency. There were intruders in the Great Labyrinth. Eleftheria was visibly shocked and worried about this information, while Wendy and Natsu asked what the Great Labyrinth was. Hikage then noticed Eleftheria had visitors and introduced himself as Hikage, the traveling crow. He got carried away in his introduction, explaining he met Eleftheria while traveling from east to west searching for money 5 years ago. Eleftheria scolded him, saying it wasn't time to reminisce, and asked who was in the Great Labyrinth. Hikage immediately replied that it was Diabolos. Everyone's eyes widened upon hearing this, and Hikage added that the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights were with them, practically at full power. After that, we went to the Great Labyrinth, where Scarian wondered if it was right that Celine wanted them to defeat Eleftheria, and Mad Mole agreed with him. Meanwhile, Kyria mentioned that they had something to do before that. We were then introduced to other members of the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights: Kirin the Yellow Dragon, Haku the White Tiger Dragon, Misaki the Azure Dragon, and Suzaku the Vermilion Dragon. Kirin commented that it seemed like they needed what was inside the Great Labyrinth, while Haku mentioned that this was their first job from the new master, so they should give their best. Misaki remarked that children are so quick to adapt, and Suzaku agreed with her. Kirin stated that he could support Celine's goal because it seemed great to defeat the 5 dragon gods and create a world of only humans. Haku happily said it was cool because their master was a dragon, and Misaki commented that it wasn't bad. We then returned to Magia Dragon, where a worried Urza asked what the Great Labyrinth was and why Diabolos was there. Fear was evident on Eleftheria's face, as he said their situation was very dire because the 6th of the 5 dragon gods was sleeping there. Urza was utterly shocked when she heard there was a 6th dragon, and Gray and Wendy couldn't understand how there could be 5 dragon gods, yet there was a 6th one. Natsu arrogantly said it was simple because 5 plus 1 is 6, but Lucy pointed out that wasn't what they were talking about. Even Happy was bewildered, asking if there were actually 6 dragon gods, and Carla noted that if that was the case, shouldn't they be called the 6 dragon gods? Eleftheria didn't speak, but the worry was evident on his face, prompting Hikage to try calling out to him. Suddenly, Eleftheria transformed into his dragon form and said that this cannot stand, and that he needed to go to the Great Labyrinth immediately. Natsu shouted for him to wait and to take them with him because, as Urza said, Diabolos might be involved, and if that was the case, wouldn't he need their help, added Gray. He stared at them for a moment, but soon let them ride on his back, and he quickly flew towards the Great Labyrinth. While flying, he explained that the 5 dragon gods were originally 6 and were called the 6 dragon gods, but one of them died, thus they became the 5 dragon gods. Happy and Carla were puzzled by his mention of the dragon's death, as he had previously said it was just sleeping, so Eleftheria clarified that he meant the remains of that dragon. Gray then thought that the Great Labyrinth might be some sort of tomb, or something similar. Urza asked if there was any problem if the tomb was invaded, and Lucy awkwardly explained that it usually was indeed a problem. Eleftheria continued his explanation, stating that the 6th dragon, Dogramag, could be considered the weakest of the 6 dragon gods, but that was only in comparison to the other 5. Compared to other dragons, it was still a powerful threat. He also revealed that 100 years ago, he succeeded in defeating Dogramag, which amazed Wendy and Natsu, and they found it impressive. However, in exchange, Dogramag ate his heart, shocking Gray and Lucy, while Natsu cheerfully said that was incredible. But he soon realized the implication and shouted that people die when that happens, questioning if Eleftheria was still alive. Eleftheria explained that it was a side effect of dragonization. When a human uses dragon slayer magic, their body eventually turns into a dragon, and when that happens, it affects not only their outward appearance but also their organs. Gray, feeling disgusted, asked him not to tell them he grew a new heart, but Eleftheria said that wasn't the case. His body simply no longer needed a heart. Natsu was amazed again, prompting Lucy to point out that it wasn't impressive, but rather weird. She added that she had read about it and pointed out that the heart circulates blood throughout the body, so without it, a being shouldn't be able to live. Eleftheria then clarified that, strictly speaking, an organ was created to replace his heart, and thanks to that, he had lived this long. Gray commented that dragons are truly impressive, to which Wendy said they are mysterious, while Lucy still wasn't satisfied with Eleftheria's explanation. Eleftheria added that nonetheless, the true terror of Dogramag came after his death, shocking Urza. Magic power overflowed from his corpse, took root within the land, and produced a massive underground labyrinth, which became the Great Labyrinth of Dogra. Happy was utterly bewildered upon learning this, and Carla couldn't believe it either. Eleftheria was sure that was Dogramag's true power, that even in death it continued to radiate power worthy of the name Dragon God. Over 1,000 adventurers and wizards had entered the labyrinth, but only a few returned. According to their reports, the Great Labyrinth was complex and continued to extend each year. It was 100 years ago when the entrance to the labyrinth was sealed because it was so dangerous. Lucy shouted to wait a minute, asking if that meant the Great Labyrinth was still extending even now. Eleftheria replied that he didn't know, but he knew that the source, Dogramag, was dead. They had no choice but to seal its entrance. Lucy asked if he thought Dogramag's body had regenerated after 100 years, to which he replied that he didn't know. Even after Dogramag died, he still didn't know why he created the labyrinth. Urza asked what the problem would be if Diabolos went there, so Eleftheria pointed out that they wanted to consume the dragon and obtain his power. Their eyes widened, and Urza asked if they would really eat a dead dragon. Natsu suddenly shouted that those people were trying to eat dragons alive, but Lucy quickly told him that wasn't the issue. Wendy thought that surely only bones would be left after 100 years, while Happy imagined how Diabolos would eat Dogramag's bones. Eleftheria said there were many things he didn't know about the power of the Earth Dragon God, but it was clear that it was a power that worked even after death. He shuddered at the thought of that power falling into the hands of humans, but what scared him even more was his own heart. Natsu asked if it hadn't been eaten, and Eleftheria said it remained inside the labyrinth, surprising Gray. Dogramag couldn't digest his heart because it might have been surrounded by some kind of spell, or it might have regenerated its power due to Dogramag's labyrinth power, but he could feel his old heart beating. Lucy asked if that wasn't supposed to be possible, to which Eleftheria that it was natural, and he would be lying if he said he had no attachment to parts of his body. If it didn't exist anymore, so be it, but if by any chance his heart still existed, the power of the Law Dragon would extend to Diabolos. Carla wondered what the Law Dragon was, so he explained that it was the element of his Dragon Slayer magic. If Natsu's was flame and Wendy's was sky, his was law. It was the power of knowledge, to obtain all information in the magic world. Lucy was amazed, and Urza asked if that power was similar to the power of the former council chairman. Eleftheria recognized him as the scumbag from Ishgar and said the council chairman's power is no match to him. But even that power could get information about Face. If someone used the power of his heart, they would uncover the negative legacy of the magic world, including Etherian and Face. Urza was shocked to learn there was another government weapon besides Etherian and Face, so Eleftheria said it was originally a weapon for the self-defense of persecuted wizards, and Lucy asked what kind of weapon it was. He said he couldn't tell her, but it was the negative legacy he spoke of, something humans of this era wouldn't know. Urza understood, and at any rate, it would be bad if Diabolos got his heart, and it was time to settle their score with them. Natsu shouted that Eleftheria could count on them and that he was getting fired up, making Eleftheria smile. Before long, Hikage informed them that they were nearing the Great Labyrinth. As they approached, Urza immediately noticed something at the entrance. She saw Gajeel, Lily, and Laxus, which surprised her, and the two were also shocked because they were with a dragon. Eleftheria asked if those two were their acquaintances, and they said that they were members of their guild. Suddenly, Eleftheria smelled that the two were dragon slayers, which caught his attention. After they landed, Lucy quickly asked why they were there, to which Gajeel returned the question, and Laxus said they ended up there without knowing why. Wendy wondered what was happening, to which Laxus also didn't know. Urza asked if that meant they were blown away by something, to which Gajeel irritably shouted, asking who could have done it and that he would beat them up. Eleftheria suddenly noticed something above the labyrinth, and when Lucy and Wendy looked, fear was evident on their faces. It turned out that they saw Selene, fully transformed into her dragon form. Eleftheria was shocked to see the moon dragon god and thought that Diabolos were not the intruders. Natsu shouted Selene's name, and she looked at them arrogantly. Selene commented that it had been a long time since she last saw Eleftheria, and he asked her why she was there. Selene then said that this was the tomb of her good friend, Dogrimak. Suddenly, Selene announced that their preparations were complete, and the sky suddenly darkened, scaring Happy and Hikage. Selene called out to Natsu as if she were a game host, and said that they were about to start the game. Gajeel shouted, asking what Selene was talking about, while Laxus asked why only the two of them were brought there. Lily pointed out that he was there too. Selene said that anyone was fine as long as they were dragon slayers. Eleftheria asked what she meant by that, and Selene replied that Diabolos belonged to her now. Urza and Gray's eyes widened in shock, and Lucy asked why a dragon would take over a guild that eats dragons. Selene said they had a common interest. She explained that deep within that labyrinth was Eleftheria's heart, and she wanted it. As Eleftheria was about to ask why, Selene transformed into her human form and said that he could figure it out. What she wanted was information that even Eleftheria didn't have about the location of human weapons. Happy asked if this was the negative legacy Eleftheria mentioned, and Carla asked what she meant by Eleftheria not knowing. Selene answered that through the power of the labyrinth, the power of Eleftheria's heart now exceeded the power of his body. However, if his body died, that power would be lost. Eleftheria also returned to his human form, visibly annoyed with Selene. She commented that Eleftheria should stay safe, and then she suddenly made him disappear right in front of Natsu. Natsu angrily asked where she had taken him. Selene said she couldn't let him die and assured them that he would be safe until she got the heart. Laxus and Lily were confused by this. Selene reminded them that she had already told them it was a game. There were 7 members of Diabolos and 7 members of Fairy Tail, so Carla commented that she, Happy, and Lily weren't included in the count. It was a 7-on-7 dungeon battle, and the first to find the heart would win. Natsu was thrilled because it seemed fun, irritating Gajeel, who said it shouldn't be fun. Wendy asked if Selene would participate, but Selene said they should think of her as a sponsor who would watch them. Urza immediately drew her sword and charged, saying that Selene must be joking and that she would slice her down right then. Selene seriously said to bring her the heart, and in return, she would be happy to fight them. Laxus still didn't understand what was happening, but asked if the point was that they needed to defeat the 7 people inside the labyrinth. Gray commented that he was at ease because Laxus was there, and Lucy said Selene's expectations seemed a bit off. Selene just smiled and said that as long as she enjoyed herself, it was fine. Whether they won or both sides died, the heart would be hers, and the battle was simply entertainment until then. Urza was visibly angry with her, and Selene shouted that the rules were simple: get the heart and escape. There were also 2 more rules. First, the entrance would be blocked until one team was eliminated. In other words, it was impossible to escape until the 7 contestants on either side were defeated. Secondly, they must not destroy the heart, and she would watch to ensure they didn't do anything strange. She asked if they understood and pointed out that Eleftheria, whom she sent to another dimension, no longer mattered to her. She had relayed these rules to Diabolos, and they had already started their journey through the labyrinth. Selene waved her finger, and Natsu and his team were enveloped in a strange aura. Wendy noticed it was magic that allowed movement across space, and Gajeel also noticed that it was the same magic that brought him and Laxus there. Urza irritably asked where they were being sent, while Laxus, smiling, asked if this was really how they would enter the labyrinth. Before long, they completely vanished as Selene sent them inside to start the game. Hikage was utterly bewildered by what he had witnessed, and Selene suddenly noticed him and asked if he wanted to join her for tea while watching. Selene conjured a large sphere, showing Hikage that they could see the inside of the labyrinth through it. Inside the labyrinth, Gajeel started walking down a hallway, commenting on being dragged into another pointless matter, while Carla noted that they were now inside. They exchanged glances and then realized that Gajeel wasn't with Lily and Carla wasn't with Wendy. Gajeel shouted to switch with Lily, while Carla, irritated, asked what he was talking about and where Wendy and the others were. She then realized that they were probably transferred inside separately. In another part of the labyrinth, Wendy was walking while carrying Lily. Wendy soon noticed that she was holding Lily, so she apologized for carrying him, making Lily blush as he said it was okay. Lily commented that the place was ominous, and Wendy sensed a strange kind of magic. In another part of the labyrinth, Urza and Gray were talking about being separated from the others. Gray remarked that they were in a tough situation because in a labyrinth as complex as this, there was no way to know if they could find each other. Urza disagreed, saying they had 4 dragon slayers, so using their noses, they could find each other. Gray pointed out that this also meant all their enemies could find them. Urza told him to keep his guard up and stay close to her. She suddenly asked if he wanted to hold her hand like before, which Gray found scary because Urza was serious about it. In yet another part of the labyrinth, Natsu was wandering around, feeling excited about the events, while Happy reminded him that Eleftheria was being held hostage. Suddenly, they heard someone calling their names from a hallway. They realized it was Lucy's voice, and when they found her, she was stuck in a wall, asking for their help.
素晴らしい.
They stared at her for a moment, but soon burst into laughter, making Lucy cry even more and telling them to stop gawking and help her. They asked, still laughing, how she got stuck in the wall. Happy was laughing about the nickname he gave her, Walu. Irritated, Lucy explained that Selene made it look like she could use teleportation magic, but it failed. Natsu laughed even more at Happy's nickname, prompting Lucy to angrily shout that she wasn't a wall. Natsu checked the back and saw Lucy's peaches, making her scream about what he expected to see. She told them to ignore that and just help her, so Natsu asked how. She pointed out that he could break the wall. Natsu started to laugh again, and Lucy irritably asked if they planned to leave her there for entertainment. Eventually, Natsu punched the wall solidly, but when it didn't break, he unleashed a flurry of punches, but it still didn't break, leaving Happy and Lucy bewildered. Suddenly, someone commented beside them that it was strange the walls of that labyrinth couldn't be broken by any force. They turned their attention to him, and he added that it was expected because if the walls were easy to break, it wouldn't be a labyrinth. It turned out that Haku had arrived, and he introduced himself to them. Natsu was irritated because Haku was just a kid, yet he was a member of Diabolos. Haku suddenly said not to worry. He would get Lucy out of the wall. Haku stretched his hand on Lucy, and with a poof, she was out of the wall, but now she was a doll, causing Lucy to scream, asking what had happened to her. Natsu and Happy were utterly bewildered by Lucy's transformation, while Haku cheerfully remarked that he had successfully removed her from the wall. Lucy kept shouting, asking what was happening, while Haku wondered if she looked cute. Natsu immediately ordered Haku to return Lucy to normal, but Haku argued that she had become cute with considerable effort. Happy warned Natsu to be cautious because Haku was one of the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights and might be as strong as Suzaku. Natsu shouted in disbelief, questioning if that was true even though Haku was so small. Happy pointed out that many strong people are small, which reminded Natsu of Makarov, Lily, and Mavis, and he understood Happy's point. Haku suddenly commented that Natsu's eyes were scary, so Natsu said that he should shut up. He then added that it was fine because he was sure Natsu would also become a cute plush doll. Natsu retorted that he didn't want to be part of anything cute. Soon after, Haku shouted, "Plush doll go," and instantly transformed Natsu into a plush doll like Lucy. Lucy was worried, and even Happy was transformed by Haku. Natsu was furious with Haku while Happy panicked because they had both become plush dolls. Haku found them extremely cute, but also pointed out that Happy had always been cute. Natsu tried to stand up using his doll body but kept falling. Haku explained that as a plush doll, he needed some tricks to stand up. After some effort, Natsu managed to stand, though with difficulty, and shouted at Haku not to underestimate him, preparing to use fire dragon magic. Haku immediately warned him to stay away from fire magic because plush dolls were easily flammable, making Natsu hesitate and worry. Lucy wondered if that meant they could still use magic even as plush dolls. She pulled out Virgo's key and opened the gate of the maiden to summon her. However, when Virgo appeared, she was also a plush doll and asked what Lucy needed, leaving Lucy speechless. Haku was delighted to see another plush doll and asked how she did it. Lucy pointed out that Virgo should be able to use magic and ordered her to dig a hole. Virgo noticed that the ground was protected by a special kind of magic, making it impossible to dig through, disappointing Lucy. Virgo lay down and said punishment was the answer, cheerfully wondering if she would be pierced by marking pins here and there. Haku explained again that neither the walls nor the floor of the labyrinth could be broken no matter what. He thought that the person who made the labyrinth wanted them to have fun. Meanwhile, in another part of the labyrinth, Suzaku was walking around and soon realized he was lost because he saw the symbol he had placed on a wall again. He found it puzzling as it seemed like he had returned to where he started. Soon after, he decided to run down another path but quickly recognized the area, realizing it was the same place he had been before. Elsewhere in the labyrinth, Wendy and Lily were running away from a giant boulder, reminiscent of a scene from Tomb Raider. As they ran, the ground suddenly opened up, revealing spike traps, so they quickly jumped over them. The ceiling also began to descend rapidly, but they managed to dodge it. After that, the walls started spewing fire, causing Wendy to cry, and Lily wondered what was happening. Eventually, they evaded all the traps, and Wendy commented that at least there were no monsters in that area. However, as she spoke, they turned around and saw several stone monsters. Meanwhile, we returned to Urza and Gray, who are fighting the same type of monsters that Wendy saw, and both are shouting that Celine said only Diabolos was inside the labyrinth. So, what are these monsters doing here? In Carla and Gajil's situation, it's the same. Carla wonders if the dead dragon also created these monsters, to which Gajil simply responds that it doesn't matter who did it, they just need to destroy them. On the other hand, we go to Diabolos, where Kiria is irritated while facing the monsters. Misaki asks if she's scared, to which Kiria immediately responds that it's not that, the monsters are just annoying. Misaki agrees, saying she has a point. These monsters are not ordinary. They are made from the same material as the floor and walls of the labyrinth. Because of this, while Kiria tries to attack them, she asks Misaki if it means her attacks won't work on them. Misaki points out that while they are made from the same material, they have a core that allows their bodies to move. Misaki uses magic on one of the monsters and soon reveals a small sphere in the middle of its body, which Kiria immediately slices. With that, they defeat the monsters they were facing. Meanwhile, we return to Natsu's situation against Haku. Haku comments that even though Natsu and the others are now cute stuffed animals, they are technically still enemies, to which Natsu yells for him to stop. Haku apologizes, saying it's time to say goodbye. Lucy asked what's Haku gonna do, while Happy says it's bad given their current form. Haku pulls something from his coat pocket, revealing a dog-like plush doll, saying it's cute but ferocious. Natsu wonders what that creature is, while Lucy finds it somewhat cute and Happy is terrified. After releasing the dog-like plushie, Haku bids them farewell, and the plushie immediately chases them, causing them to run away to escape it. Haku happily comments that he has defeated the two of them and wonders if his companions will praise him later. Outside the labyrinth, Celine and Hikage are also watching the events unfold. Hikage is worried because Fairy Tail members were defeated, and Celine comments that it looks like 2 members of Fairy Tail have already dropped out. However, she clarifies that she wouldn't say they are completely out of the game and asks Hikage if she should treat it as a temporary dropout. Hikage nervously states that now it's 5 against 7, but Celine says that's not all. Hikage is shocked by what he sees next. Scarian and Mad Mole have also been defeated, and the one who took them down is Laxus. Celine points out that now the battle is 5 against 5. Hikage is astonished at how that man managed to do it, so Celine introduces him to Laxus, saying he is a contender for Fairy Tail's strongest member. Celine finds it very interesting and comments that after Laxus defeated the two, someone has come. As Laxus turns around, it turns out that Kirin has arrived. Celine comments that now, the 2 contenders for the strongest will clash. Laxus and Kirin stared each other down as Scarian and Mad Mole reminded Kirin to be careful because Laxus was monstrously strong. Kirin set down the coffin he was carrying, saying they could count on him. He noted it was problematic because Laxus was too big for the coffin, and while he considered chopping up the body to fit, he quickly found the idea disgusting. Laxus commented that there was no point in worrying because the one entering that coffin would be Kirin himself. Kirin replied that no one had ever suggested he would enter his own coffin and that Laxus was truly one of a kind. Kirin snapped his fingers, and a sphere-like figure appeared beside Laxus, suddenly exploding and sending him flying. Laxus was shocked, unable to explain the attack. Kirin snapped his fingers again, and this time numerous spheres appeared, all exploding on Laxus's body. Laxus questioned if Kirin's magic was invisible and decided to counterattack with a lightning strike. However, the attack seemed to curve away from Kirin, surprising Laxus. Kirin explained that his magic could compress and distort the atmosphere. Another solid hit struck Laxus, but he quickly recovered, jumping to deliver a powerful lightning punch to Kirin's face. However, it seemed to stop mid-air, similar to Gojo Satoru's infinity power, and didn't reach Kirin. The resulting shockwave was intense, but Kirin's power meant no attack could hit him. Kirin countered with his magic, sending Laxus flying and causing him to spit blood. Kirin added that this was why all his enemies ended up in coffins. Kirin had knocked Laxus down, impressing Scarian and Mad Mole as they had been helpless against him, yet Kirin was overpowering him. Laxus commented that he understood now and that Kirin's magic was indeed unique, but he was full of hot air if he claimed no attacks could hit him. Kirin was puzzled by this, and Laxus explained while standing up that many things could easily conduct electricity, such as the ground, before sending a powerful lightning attack through the floor. The attack hit Kirin solidly, and Laxus followed up, but Kirin used Atmos distortion, hitting Laxus. However, Laxus endured it, unleashing his red lightning, stating it cut through the atmosphere. Kirin's invisible barrier couldn't stop the attack, and Laxus's red lightning punch struck his face solidly. The attack, named Negation Red Lightning, sent Kieran flying and caused him to spit blood. Watching this, Scarian and Mad Mole were in disbelief at what Laxus had achieved. Kieran, surprised by Fairy Tail having such a powerful member, admitted that if this continued, he might end up in his own coffin as Laxus had said. Kieran stated he liked Laxus, so he would get more serious now, staring at him with a frightening look. Laxus felt something and compared Kieran's magic power to that of Gildart's. Meanwhile, in the situation with Natsu, Lucy, and Happy, they were still being chased by Haku's dog-like plush doll. Lucy remembered she can use Loki, so she quickly opened the gate of the lion to summon him. When Loki appeared, Happy cried because Loki was also a plushie. Lucy explained that Loki should be able to use his magic to blind their pursuer, but when Loki looked at the dog-like doll, he pointed out that it had no eyes, making Lucy cry as well. Loki asked Natsu if he couldn't defeat the dog without using fire, to which Natsu replied that punching or kicking it did nothing. Loki then suggested that maybe burning it was the solution, and Natsu said if he could have done that, he would have already. Loki understood and said they needed to burn it without using Natsu's fire. Loki came up with a plan, first instructing Lucy to use Ares to stop the dog from running. Lucy quickly summoned Ares, who used her fluffy wuffy wool bomb to immobilize the dog. Loki then instructed Natsu to hold the dog and raise his body temperature, but to be careful not to burn himself. Lucy asked what Loki was planning to do, and Loki explained that his Regulus light should be enough to ignite the dog. Loki's attack hit the dog's nose, gradually causing it to burn. Loki told Natsu to get away from the dog, and soon, the dog-like plushie was engulfed in flames. Happy cheered that they had done it, and the dog turned to ashes. Lucy and Happy were horrified by the sight of the burning dog, and they told Natsu not to blow on the fire. As the smoke cleared, they saw a sphere-like object that had come from the plushie dog, which Natsu picked up, wondering what it was. Lucy thanked Loki, who then returned to the celestial world. Lucy asked what they should do next, and Natsu replied that it was obvious. They should find the kid who did this and teach him how scary grown-ups could be, to which Happy asked if he was a grown-up. In another part of the labyrinth, Wendy and Lily were exhausted but had managed to defeat their enemies. They wondered if their companions were experiencing the same challenges, and Lily suggested that maybe they were on a different route. As the two caught their breath, Haku suddenly arrived, commenting that he had found his new prey. Wendy commented that her clothes were now dirty, while Lily said that the labyrinth was horrible. Suddenly, Haku spoke from behind them, saying that he was sure if he turned them into plushies, it would fix her clothes. Haku got their attention, and Wendy screamed, asking who he was, while Lily immediately warned Wendy to be cautious, suspecting he might be a member of Diabolos. Haku agreed, introduced himself, and mentioned that he had already defeated 2 of their friends. Wendy was shocked that a child could do that, prompting Haku to pout and ask what was wrong with that, pointing out that Wendy was also small. Wendy scratched her head, and Haku found her reaction incredibly cute. Haku shyly asked for Wendy's name, making Lily speechless as he slurred his words. Wendy told him her name, and Haku kept repeating it joyfully. Suddenly, Haku declared that he loved her, shocking Wendy, while Lily was speechless again because of the slur. Lily thought the kid was trying to seduce Wendy, while Wendy asked if they weren't supposed to be enemies. Haku said it didn't matter because he had never seen such a cute girl in his life. Wendy blushed, and Haku said he loved her again, making her shyly ask him to stop. Wendy then pointed out that he said he had defeated 2 of her friends and asked if he had hurt them. Haku cheerfully explained that she was mistaken. He had just turned them into plushie dolls and hadn't hurt them. Lily asked what he meant by plushies, and Haku pointed at Lily, instantly turning him into a plushie. Wendy was shocked, and Haku explained that's what he had done. Lily asked what was happening, saying his strength was gone. Wendy demanded that Haku turn Lily back to normal, to which Haku said he would if Wendy would go on a date with him. Wendy screamed, asking why she would do that. Irene woke up and explained to Wendy that Lily was just in an abnormal state and that she could restore him. Wendy immediately used rays, soon returning Lily to normal, surprising Haku. Haku was amazed and asked how Wendy had lifted his spell, so Wendy explained that she was an enchanter and had the power to heal. Haku seemed terrified upon learning this, with his eyes wide open, but it turned out he just wanted to say that he loved Wendy very much, making Wendy speechless. Haku then got an idea and said that if he defeated Wendy, he wanted her to go on a date with him. Wendy was puzzled by this. Suddenly, Irene controlled Wendy's body and made her agree to Haku's wish, causing Wendy to cover her mouth and try to resist Irene. Lily was speechless again, thinking she had gone crazy, while Haku was delighted, asking if it was true and if she would promise him. Wendy tried to say no, but Irene controlled her again, telling him not to make her repeat herself and to go ahead and attack. Wendy pleaded with Irene not to make her say things she didn't mean, but Irene said watching a romance between two kids quickly became boring. Besides, Irene added, Wendy's body was extremely important to her as it was, and she couldn't disregard a child interfering with it. Irene seriously said that Haku needed to be taught a lesson. Wendy told Irene to stop saying such things and that there was nothing to worry about. Wendy prepared herself and said that if it was for her friends who were turned into plushies, she would borrow Irene's strength, and she released a powerful aura. Lily couldn't believe what he was feeling and asked if this magic power really belonged to Wendy. Haku then asked Wendy if it was okay that if he managed to transform her into a plushie, it would mean she had lost. Wendy replied that abnormal conditions wouldn't work on her. Haku questioned this and immediately used Plush Doll, but Wendy easily countered it with abnormal condition defense magic, Re-Rays. Wendy stopped Haku's magic from reaching her, surprising him that she was telling the truth. He then thought of another way to deal with her. Wendy said it was her turn to attack, and just as she was about to say what she wanted to happen, Irene interrupted and whispered to her that if Haku was torn to shreds, she would win. But Wendy didn't say that. Instead, she said that if she knocked Haku out, he would lose, to which Haku agreed. Wendy then used Sky Dragon's Wave Wind, creating a massive tornado heading towards Haku. Unexpectedly, Haku moved quickly and managed to dodge it. Wendy followed up with Sky Dragon's Roar, and when Haku saw that it came from her mouth, he caught the attack and even thanked her. Haku cheerfully fell over, leaving Lily and Wendy stunned. Haku rolled around and said he was very lucky and that he was safe now. Because of that, Irene ordered Wendy not to use her roar again, and Wendy agreed. Wendy prepared to attack again with Sky Dragon magic while Haku stood up, adjusted his hoodie, and decided to get more serious since he was still okay after the previous attack. Haku stood like an animal and declared that he was a white tiger. In an instant, he charged at Wendy with incredible speed, passing right through her. The movement was so fast that they couldn't see what he had done. Haku explained that the white tiger dragon was incredibly fast, moving at the speed of light. He held something in his hand, which turned out to be Irene, now also a plushie, and said he would take her too. Wendy was shocked to see this, while Lily wondered how it happened. Haku said he sensed that Wendy was secretly taking advice from someone, and he could also turn personas into plushies. Wendy immediately tried to use Re-Rays on Irene, but it had no effect, so she stared at Irene. Haku explained that it seemed she couldn't lift spells placed on a spirit body, and Wendy's worry was evident on her face. Haku then pointed out that he forgot to mention earlier that he was one of the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights, and that he was very strong. In another part of the labyrinth, we saw Laxus lying battered on the ground, unable to believe what he had seen. Kieran said that this was the strength of a Dark Dragon Slayer Knight. As Laxus struggled to stand, Kieran immediately launched another attack. When Laxus turned to see, He realized that Kirin was using the coffin he had been carrying as a weapon to strike him. Laxus questioned whether it was the coffin that had hit him earlier, and as he tried to block it, he felt a strange sensation as if the coffin was also affecting his soul. After that attack, Laxus realized what it was. Kirin returned the coffin to his back and explained that when he said he would put Laxus in that coffin, it was just a joke. He said the coffin already had a soul inside it, the soul of a king. Laxus stared at him, and the scene shifted to Wendy and Lily's situation, facing a more serious Haku. Lily asked Wendy about the doll that came from her body, but Wendy said it was a long story to explain later, and what mattered now was their opponent, who was stronger than they had thought. Lily transformed into his battle form and acknowledged that he understood. He charged at Haku, who was amazed that the cat could also fight. However, Haku said the fight was between him and Wendy, so Lily shouldn't interfere. Haku sent numerous string-like substances at Lily, which gradually stuck to him. Lily realized they were yarn. Lily tried to cut them with his sword, but they wouldn't break. The yarn formed an arm and punched Lily in the jaw. Wendy was worried about Lily, but Haku suddenly rushed at her. As Haku aimed an uppercut, Wendy countered with a downward punch, their fists meeting. Unfortunately, Haku's punch was stronger, sending Wendy flying. Haku was thrilled because he got to touch Wendy's hand. Wendy spun through the air, but managed to stop herself from being thrown further. She wondered how Haku had done that, and Haku explained that the white tiger dragon was fast and strong. Wendy charged at Haku again, using the sky dragon's wing attack, but Haku dodged it, surprising her. Haku countered, telling her not to worry because it wouldn't hurt. Haku then used Doll Parade, creating numerous and various types of plushie dolls that he sent after Wendy. The plushies swarmed Wendy, causing her to fall, and started tickling her, with some even getting inside her clothes. Haku asked if she couldn't move anymore, and if that meant he had won, while Lily was worried about her. Wendy struggled to stand because the plushies were surprisingly strong, and Haku was delighted, saying that from now on, Wendy was his girlfriend. Haku laughed while watching Wendy being overwhelmed by the plushies, but unexpectedly, one plushie that looked like a devil penguin started beating up the other plushies. Haku was shocked to see one of his plushies rebelling and asked why. The penguin plushie responded by saying enchanter, and Wendy recognized the voice as Irene's. Irene explained that an enchanter could imbue objects with power and attributes, and as a high enchanter like herself, she could even infuse objects with her personality. Haku was astonished and asked if that meant Irene had separated her personality from the doll he made earlier, to which Irene said she could even multiply it further. The other plushies that Irene had knocked down stood up again, as if possessed, and all stared menacingly at Haku, scaring him. Irene commanded all the plushies to attack Haku and signaled Wendy to act. Wendy immediately created a tornado vortex while the plushies swarmed Haku. Haku, puzzled by the wind, asked what it was. Wendy explained that no matter how fast he was, he wouldn't be able to escape it. It was a cage of wind. Soon after, Wendy used the Dragon Slayer secret art, Shattering Light, Sky Drill. The attack hit Haku solidly because of their trap, making Irene and Lily smile. Haku fell, and the yarn on Lily's body unraveled. Lily was impressed that Wendy had defeated Haku on her own, but Wendy explained that Irene had saved her again. Irene pointed out that Wendy hadn't noticed something. She had done almost nothing. Wendy was puzzled by this. Irene explained that they had won entirely because of Wendy's magic power. What they had performed was a multi-body enchantment, with Wendy's magic serving as the mediation. In other words, Wendy was now a high enchanter-type wizard. While that was happening, we returned to Natsu, Lucy, and Happy, who are now being chased by a large boulder. As they were running, they suddenly returned to their normal forms, causing Natsu to trip and crash into Lucy, resulting in them tumbling down and shooting into one of the holes to avoid the boulder. Happy exclaimed that they were back to normal. Natsu shouted, "Hell yeah," in excitement, while Lucy was displeased, saying she wasn't happy about their current situation in the hole with Natsu. Natsu moved Lucy's legs, causing her to scream and ask where he thought he was touching. This left Happy speechless, commenting that it was happening again. Outside the labyrinth, Celine and Hikage continued to watch, noting that the situation was now 7 against 4 since Fairy Tail had made a comeback. Celine mocked Diabolos, saying they were embarrassing themselves. Hikage, still nervous while watching, noticed that somehow the appearance of the labyrinth seemed different. We then moved to Gajeel and Carla's situation, where the room they were in began to shake. Carla angrily asked Gajeel what he had done, to which Gajeel replied that he hadn't done anything except take a stone-looking thing from a gargoyle statue, making Carla yell that he had done something. Suddenly, the platform Carla was standing on began to descend, causing her to fall. Fortunately, Gajeel immediately jumped to catch her, protecting her as they fell. In Laxus and Kieran's situation, various parts of the room began to shake and move, making them think the labyrinth might be transforming. The ground they stood on split, separating Laxus and Kieran. Kieran commented that Laxus had barely escaped and called him Lightning Brother, while Laxus replied that he really wanted to put Kieran in his coffin. Kieran retorted that he already said that the coffin already had an occupant, to which Laxus just told him to wait until next time and called him Coffin Brother. We then go to Urza and Gray, experiencing the same shaking and moving as the others. Urza, irritated, said she was taking notes on the place's layout, surprising Gray, who asked when she did that. Urza wondered how he hadn't noticed and showed him, to which Gray exclaimed that they couldn't use that information. Suddenly, the ground beneath them split, causing them to fall. Gray immediately hugged Urza to shield her from the fall, and when he asked if she was okay, Urza agreed. Urza then hugged Gray back, making him blush, but it turned out she was just saving him from a trap. Meanwhile, on the ship carrying the Fairy Tail Guild back to Magnolia, Juvia suddenly screamed. Levi asked her what the problem was, and Juvia explained that her love rival sensor was on high alert. Juvia's eyes widened, saying that someone was definitely flirting with Gajeel, making Levi ask what she meant about Gajeel, pointing out that he had just disappeared. Juvia, on the other hand, screamed that Gajeel was flirting with Gray, prompting Levi to side comment that she couldn't see that happening. We returned to Gray and Urza, who noticed that they seemed to have landed on a lower floor. They suddenly heard a noise from above, revealing Gajeel and Carla falling. Soon after, Gajeel and Gray's faces collided solidly. In Lily and Wendy's situation, the ground also began to collapse. As they were about to leave, Wendy instructed Lily that they needed to help Haku. Lily suggested leaving him behind because he was an enemy, but Wendy argued that he was just a child. Reluctantly, Lily agreed and picked up Haku, commenting that Wendy might have fallen for the kid. Wendy bluntly said sorry, but assured him that wasn't the reason. Meanwhile, Natsu and Lucy were still in the hole, starting to feel like something was crushing them. Happy was worried, and soon after, a hole opened at the bottom of their pit, causing Lucy to fall through, quickly followed by Natsu. As Lucy landed on the ground, someone commented that her doggy pose wasn't bad. It turned out to be Kiria, who added that Lucy should try barking and whining like a miserable puppy for her. We then returned to Gajeel, Gray, Urza, and Carla, where Gajeel and Gray were irritated after their heads collided, prompting Urza to stop them immediately. Carla commented that she's had enough of it and that she couldn't find Wendy, and suddenly, Urza felt something. Gajeel and Gray felt it too, their eyes widening as they wondered what kind of magic power it was. Someone spoke in front of them, saying it seemed she made quite the catch. It turned out to be Misaki, who introduced herself to them and asked if they had seen her protege, Kiria. She said that she was lost, and added that Kiria is careless when she's not around. Gajeel, Gray, and Urza immediately noticed the strong magic power of their opponent. Misaki commented that she was well aware of the situation and quickly cast a spell towards Urza. This caused Urza's armor to shatter, revealing her melons, making Gajeel and Gray blush and become speechless, while Happy kept a poker face at their reactions. Urza quickly covered herself, and Misaki said her intention was to tear Urza's entire body apart. She then tried something else, causing Urza's hair to float. Gray grew concerned, noticing that Urza seemed unable to resist what was happening to her. Soon, the long part of Urza's hair was cut off, leaving only the part that didn't reach her shoulders. Misaki just smiled and said she had intended to tear it out from its roots. Urza began to tremble, recalling what Jalal had told her when they were children, that scarlet was the color of her hair and how she got her name. Soon, her eyes blazed with anger as she called Misaki a bastard, to which Misaki commented on the nice expression she was making. Meanwhile, Natsu fell into another part of the labyrinth, searching for Lucy and Happy. As he walked, he suddenly felt something behind him and quickly turned around. The presence approached him slowly, and he commented that he was eager to see it. It turned out to be Suzaku, who stared at Natsu seriously while Natsu said he was getting fired up. The teams from Fairy Tail and Diabolos had now faced off, each pairing with an opponent, while Celine continued to watch from outside the labyrinth. Natsu and Suzaku locked eyes. Natsu told Suzaku that he was going to repay him for what he did last time, but Suzaku replied that it wouldn't happen because no matter what Natsu did, the result would be the same. Natsu pointed out that Suzaku had said they would defeat Celine, so why was he now her ally? Suzaku explained simply, Celine's goal was to kill the 5 dragon gods, and so was theirs. Natsu then said it didn't matter anymore because he was going to defeat him, while Suzaku told him he wouldn't be able to avoid his sword. They both readied for their charge. Natsu's fists were enveloped in flames, while Suzaku prepared to slash quickly. Their eyes glinted with determination. Suzaku swiftly charged at Natsu, and his attack landed solidly, but Natsu was smiling, surprising Suzaku. Blood dripped from Natsu, revealing that he had blocked Suzaku's attack with his dragon-scaled arms. Natsu was thrilled to have blocked Suzaku's attack, while Suzaku couldn't believe it. Suzaku remarked that his sword cleaved through dragon scales, but Natsu countered that his flames were the scales of a fire dragon king. Natsu then charged with his flame knuckles, but Suzaku easily dodged and countered with a sword slash. However, Natsu blocked the counter as well, leaving Suzaku incredulous that Natsu could block his sword flash barehanded. Though Natsu's arms were bleeding, he kept smiling, saying that if he concentrated a little, he could do anything. Suzaku charged again, saying that was nonsense, but as he unsheathed his sword, it hit the wall, giving Natsu an opening to kick him in the face and body. Natsu noted that the space was too tight for Suzaku's katana, irritating Suzaku, who decided to use Kurnugi's sword to destroy the wall. However, he was shocked when nothing happened to the wall. Natsu explained that the walls in this place couldn't be destroyed no matter what. Natsu followed up with an elbow to Suzaku's face, pushing him back. Suzaku questioned whether he had lost his edge since their last encounter, but Natsu denied this. Suzaku couldn't believe Natsu had grown so strong so quickly. Natsu explained that he got stronger because he trained every day. However, Suzaku noted that Natsu's movements were different. Natsu agreed and explained that everything was about movement. When he fought in the same way as his opponent, he could read their moves, like Suzaku rushing at them head-on. Natsu charged while continuing to explain that by doing so, one could understand all kinds of things, and that's how they built their strength. Suzaku, confused, noted that Natsu was smarter than he looked. Suzaku blocked Natsu's punch with his sword and suddenly asked him what 12 minus 5 was. Natsu was puzzled, and Suzaku told him to just answer. Natsu thought about it, using Lucy's keys as a reference because there were 12 of them, and wondered what would happen if he subtracted 5 from that. After some thought, Natsu proudly shouted that the answer was 10, leaving Suzaku speechless and thinking that Natsu was truly a dunce. As they continued to fight, Suzaku read Natsu's combat senses, commenting that Natsu thought quickly in battle, which was his genius. Deciding that needed to be dulled, Suzaku targeted it. Natsu was caught off guard as Suzaku delivered an upward slash that hit Natsu's shoulder solidly. Suzaku explained that he had altered the timing of his step. Unfortunately for him, Natsu just staggered back, hurt, but still okay, making Suzaku irritated that his strategy still wasn't working. Suzaku prepared himself, thinking that to cut through the scales of a Fire Dragon King, he needed to improve his concentration. Natsu also readied an attack, soon unleashing the Fire Dragon King's demolition fist towards Suzaku, filling the hallway with his flames. Suzaku withstood Natsu's flames, admitting to himself that Natsu was strong. When the flames subsided, Natsu was surprised to see that Suzaku had managed to block his attack. Suzaku then used the Kurnugi-style sword-drawing Abyss, Underworld Black Purgatory Slash. In an instant, Suzaku disappeared from in front of Natsu, moving so quickly that Natsu couldn't see him, and his attack hit Natsu solidly. Natsu was knocked back by the force of the attack, but Suzaku was astonished when Natsu planted his feet on the ground and managed to stand up after such a powerful strike, commenting that it was a close call. Natsu remarked that if he had used even a little magic power as a counterattack, his entire body might have been destroyed. Suzaku couldn't believe that even that attack had been defended by Natsu, noting that aside from that, the area had become incredibly hot, realizing that this was the flame of a Fire Dragon King. Natsu, hearing this, immediately shouted that it wasn't his doing. The walls began to melt, surprising Natsu, who said he thought the walls couldn't be destroyed. Suddenly, someone commented that a human couldn't destroy them. Ignia appeared, greeting Natsu with a hey. Natsu and Suzaku's eyes widened at the sight of Ignia, and the other members of Fairy Tail also felt the immense magic power that Ignia emitted upon his arrival. While watching from outside, Celine nervously wondered to herself why Ignia had come to that place, her eyes widening as she considered the possibility that he might know the truth behind the labyrinth. The real reason why Celine was nervous about Ignia's arrival was the possibility that he might also be after Elefsiria's heart. Meanwhile, Hikage was also nervous because there were now 2 dragon gods present. So Celine started walking while saying that the time she was referring to seemed to have come early. Then Hikage was surprised because Celine suddenly called him. Celine said that the show was over and Hikage should leave right now. Hikage was worried because Celine hadn't returned Elefsiria to him yet, but Celine assured him that he didn't need to worry about Elefsiria because he was just in her pocket space, unless Celine died. Hikage then asked Celine where she was going. Celine replied that she was going to enter the Great Labyrinth because only a dragon god could stop another dragon god. Inside the Great Labyrinth, Natsu and Suzaku first stared at Ignia. The sweat on both of them showed how intense and intimidating the heat of the fire brought by Ignia's presence was. Natsu asked Ignia what he was doing here, and Ignia answered that it was to do the only thing he could do, and that was to burn something that was here. Natsu had nothing to say. Then, Ignia walked away and told Natsu that his strength was still not enough to fight him, so he should get stronger first. Then Natsu shouted at Ignia and asked if he was just running away and afraid to fight a human. It was too late before Suzaku could stop Natsu because Ignia was already angered by what he heard. Next, Natsu boasted to Ignia and said he didn't know what Ignia's intentions were, but it was Natsu's job now to defeat him. Natsu was even thankful because Ignia had shown himself to him, so he didn't need to go through the hassle of searching for him anymore. Ignia said that a fruit should only be picked when it's ripe, and Natsu had no chance of burning Ignia now. Natsu replied that Ignia shouldn't say that until he had tasted his fire. So Natsu gave an extremely powerful fire dragon's fist, and Ignia just stood to receive the full attack. But Ignia just said that he couldn't even call these flames yet, because it was like he was just playing with fire. Suzaku was extremely exasperated with Natsu for trying to fight a fire dragon using fire magic. Natsu was irritated by Suzaku's comment and asked him if he should start learning water magic now. Then Ignia released powerful flames, while saying that flames are the power of noble destruction. The intensity of Ignia's fire was so strong that Natsu and Suzaku could barely see anything in the brightness of the surroundings. And it could also be seen that the walls of the labyrinth itself had started to collapse. And Ignia's fire was so strong that it even managed to explode the top part of the great labyrinth. Inside the labyrinth, Lucy, Kiria, Urza, and Carla were amazed at the extreme heat they were feeling that was burning their skin. Gajeel got angry because Gray was taking too long to cool their surroundings. But Gray was just thinking because he felt that this heat wasn't coming from Natsu. Then Misaki got excited about the turn of events. Next, we see that there was already a giant hole in the ground, and a large part of Castle Tomb had been erased. Suzaku and Natsu still survived Ignia's fire, but they were struggling to stand. Suzaku noticed that the shape of the labyrinth was gone, and Natsu noticed that Ignia was gone. Natsu immediately stood up to chase and find Ignia, but Suzaku stopped him because he said Natsu couldn't defeat Ignia. Natsu said it was his job to defeat Ignia and Selene, but Suzaku said Natsu wasn't even finished fighting him yet. Natsu just said they should consider that he had already won their fight. But Suzaku didn't agree with this, especially since Suzaku thought he was more powerful than Natsu. But Natsu said they could settle their fight at another time. This was because he couldn't just let Ignia roam free because he was the type who would really destroy everything. Suzaku was stunned by what Natsu said. Natsu added that his friends were already in a dangerous situation, and so were Suzaku's friends. Suzaku bowed his head while Natsu walked ahead, saying they would continue their fight after he defeated Ignia. But Suzaku spoke, and Natsu stopped because Suzaku said he had no choice but to join forces with Natsu because they had a better chance of defeating Ignia together. Natsu refused, and Suzaku got angry with him. Natsu thought he could do it alone, but Suzaku explained that if he really wanted to protect his friends, he should do everything by any means necessary. Natsu thought about what Suzaku said and agreed. So now they have formed a tag team, and their name is Fires. Suzaku asked why his element wasn't included in the name. The appearance of the labyrinth was now very different after being devastated by Ignia, and we see Kiria and Lucy, who, because of the heat, were sweating profusely and their clothes were already melting. Kiria noticed Lucy's getup and called her sexy. Lucy returned the smug gesture. Kiria then said that it seemed like they had known each other for a long time, and normally Kiria was only interested in strong people like Urza, Laxus, and Misaki. She didn't care about small fries like Lucy. Lucy responded and said she hadn't even checked if Lucy was really just a small fry. Kiria attacked Lucy while saying that even if she didn't care, she still didn't mind playing with small fries. Lucy managed to dodge Kiria's attack, and Lucy also managed to dodge the subsequent chain of slashes from Kiria. Afterwards, Lucy boasted to Kiria because she read all of her attacks. Kiria asked if she was sure, and when Lucy looked at her body, she saw that Kiria had already destroyed all of her clothes. She called Kiria a pervert, and Kiria jokingly said that Lucy's body itself was her target. So Lucy's next move was to summon her star dress cancer. With this, she had the ability to return slashing attacks to Kiria. Kiria was very confident because she thought Lucy had no chance of matching her. So the two just exchanged slashing attacks. Afterwards, Kiria boasted to Lucy and said that her slashes wouldn't work on her. But Lucy asked Kiria if she was sure, because when Kiria looked at her body, she saw that Lucy had also managed to destroy all of her clothes. Next, Lucy teased Kiria about her payback because she knew Kiria had no ability to summon clothes. So Kiria was really irritated with Lucy and even managed to curse at her. Lucy continued to tease Kiria because she knew Kiria couldn't fight anymore as someone might see her naked. Lucy said that if Kiria surrendered, she would lend her some clothes. But Kiria just got angry and told Lucy not to underestimate her. Kiria removed her hands that were covering her chest and private area. She said she wouldn't give up just because Lucy would see her naked, and that it wasn't shameful to be naked when it was just girls around. Lucy was extremely surprised because Kiria still charged at her and asked if she knew what happened when she was angered. Then we see Laxus on the side, who had apparently been watching Lucy and Kiria's fight. The two were shocked, and Kiria turned red with embarrassment, her eyes widening. Kiria's scream was so loud it echoed. Laxus asked Lucy why her chick companion was naked, but Lucy just commented that she had figured out there was a high chance a man would suddenly appear in their situation earlier. Lucy felt sorry for Kiria and asked Laxus what they could do. Then Laxus covered Kiria with his coat, and Kiria was surprised by his gesture. Laxus then said that whether Kiria was an enemy or a friend, it hurt him to see her like that. Kiria fell in love and stared at Laxus. Lucy apologized to Kiria for what she did, and Kiria just got angry, asking why she was apologizing to an enemy. Kiria still wanted to fight, standing up and getting into a ready stance. Lucy was surprised by her, and she said that Kiria doesn't even have a 1% chance now that Laxus is there. But Kiria just said she knew Laxus was strong and told him not to interfere in a fight between two women. Laxus asked Lucy if she still wanted to have a one-on-one with Kiria, and when Lucy said she didn't want to fight alone, Laxus prepared his lightning and told Kiria that's how it would be. Laxus looked at Kiria sternly and said he doesn't go easy on anyone who hurts his guild. Next, Kiria suddenly cut something on Laxus that made him stop moving. Then she told Lucy that she had cut Laxus's strength. Lucy couldn't believe seeing Laxus struggling and looking scared. With just one command from Kiria for Laxus to kneel, he immediately became obedient to her. This shocked Lucy immensely. Lucy then remembered that Kiria had done this to Urza before. Kiria explained that it didn't work on Laxus last time because in Laxus's mind, he was still weak. But Kiria figured out that the reason it didn't work on Laxus the first time was because of the influence of the White Wizard's magic. Kiria approached Laxus and patted him on the head while saying how cute he was. Laxus thanked her. Lucy was extremely shocked by this. Next, Kiria slammed her foot hard on the floor and told Laxus to lick her foot. Lucy couldn't stand just watching anymore, so she charged at Kiria while asking how much she liked humiliating people. Kiria answered that she loved the feeling of strong people surrendering before her. So Kiria charged at Lucy too and told Laxus to wait while she chopped Lucy's friends to pieces. Lucy and Kiria exchanged slashes again while Lucy thought it would be easy to win when Laxus arrived. Laxus just shouted at what Kiria had told him earlier. Then he asked if it was his magic that Kiria had cut when she cut his strength. Lucy realized that when Kiria makes people weaker, the truth is, she's just making them more obedient. But Lucy was determined to bravely face Kiria one-on-one. Kiria insulted Lucy, saying that cutting the strength of a small fry like her wasn't effective. Lucy reminded her that she was the small fry who left her in her birthday suit earlier. Kiria was annoyed by what Lucy said, so she used Blade Dragon's double slash, which managed to destroy the two swords Lucy was using. Lucy immediately used Cancer's scissors, but Kiria just kicked it with such force that it was instantly destroyed, and she sent Lucy flying far. Kiria followed this up with Blade Dragon's rending slash, and Lucy quickly brought out her Fleuve d'étoile to counter. But Kiria's upward slash easily split Lucy's weapon, and Kiria still hit Lucy in the chest. Lucy fell to the ground, and Kiria smiled at this. Luckily, Lucy could still stand up, and in her mind, she said she wasn't unprepared for the fight, but Kiria was just too strong. So Lucy knew she needed to match Kiria's skill level to win. Because of this, Lucy used Star Dress Mix, Leo x Virgo form. Kiria charged at Lucy with a smile while Lucy used Light of Regulus, Brilliance of Spica Leon Maiden. Lucy displayed extremely powerful magic, but Kiria was still confident, believing her blade could cut through all magic. So she used Blade Dragon's Overlord Sword. Kiria sent a huge blade magic flying towards Lucy, who was just surprised and couldn't do anything when Kiria told her to die. This attack went through Lucy's entire torso, and her body could be seen split, including her arm. Intense worry could be seen in Laxus's eyes as he watched the fight from behind. Kyria displayed an intense, evil smile when she saw Lucy's body and limbs split apart. But suddenly, Lucy vanished and turned into smoke. Then Kyria was surprised to see the revelation that it wasn't Lucy she had attacked earlier, but Gemini, and they were only almost hurt. Kyria realized there had been a substitution, and when she looked behind, she saw Lucy protected inside Horologium. Lucy cried because she was stripped naked again. Kyria got angry at Lucy, and Horologium mentioned that Lucy was thanking Horologium and Gemini. But because Horologium's skill couldn't be used more than once, he suddenly disappeared, leaving Lucy naked. The gentleman Laxus averted his gaze. Next, Lucy quickly used Star Dress Aries, so she avoided being completely embarrassed. Kyria knew that Lucy could only use the defensive trick she did earlier once, but Lucy was just happy she survived Kyria's intense attack. Kyria attacked Lucy again, but Lucy used her wool shield to block it. Kyria reminded Lucy of what she said about her blade being able to cut through anything, and the wool shield easily dissipated in Kyria's hand. Kyria still hit Lucy, and her clothes were torn again. Kyria started mocking Lucy, who was now defenseless against her attacks. Lucy could do nothing but accept the cuts and wounds while thinking she couldn't do anything alone. And when Kyria said it was curtain time, Lucy knew her situation was bad. But before Lucy could be hit by Kyria's killing slash, Laxus suddenly intervened between the two to protect Lucy and take the slash. The surprise was visible on all three of their faces at this unexpected turn of events. Kyria asked because she thought she had cut Laxus's strength, but Laxus said that whether he was weak or strong, he just couldn't watch Kyria slice up a guildmate's body. Kyria said that Laxus should just be a yes man to her, but Laxus reasoned that his body just moved on its own. Then Laxus asked if Kyria knew where the strength of Fairy Tail members came from. Laxus explained with a smile that they weren't strong because of themselves, but because of their bonds in the guild, and these bonds strengthened them all. Kyria just got angry at what she heard, while Lucy thought about what Laxus said about bonds. Lucy summoned Virgo to watch over the wounded Laxus and faced Kyria again with new courage, using the strength from their bonds. Kyria just laughed at Lucy's resilience, saying that what she was saying about bonds was trash and that she was just a loner princess waiting for her whole body to be sliced. But Lucy said she wasn't alone and that she had all the memories of her friends etched in her body. Lucy placed her hand on her chest, strengthening herself while remembering all her friends in Fairy Tail and all the challenges they had overcome in life together. Then Lucy stepped firmly on the ground and used her celestial magic again. This time, she used her new move, Star Dress Mix, Aquarius X Gemini. It was a bikini dress where Gemini's powers could be seen on the left half and Aquarius's powers on the right half. Virgo warned Lucy that she could only maintain this form for 16 seconds, and Lucy said that 16 seconds were all she needed. Then Lucy created a strong current of water, like a powerful river heading towards Kyria. Then Lucy chanted, saying, "I beg of thee, may the stars descend from the heavens." This magic released many water humanoids shaped like Lucy that rushed at Kyria. Kyria split these, and then Lucy recited another chant. While Kyria was struggling to find Lucy's real body, Urza suddenly appeared behind her, ready to attack. Kyria was surprised at first, but she quickly realized after slicing through it that it was just a fake Urza made of water. Next, she also sliced through the water projections of Team Natsu, including Happy's water projection. Then, from the flood emerged two powerful female friends of Lucy that frightened Kyria. While Lucy was chanting, she thought that all her memories of her friends were giving her strength. The two water babes and Lucy surrounded Kyria inside a triangle and used Celestial Trinity magic, Gottfried. This magic released an extremely powerful, bright, and condensed explosion on Kyria, stripping her as she took the attack. Lucy declared that this was the power of their bonds while collapsing on the floor because she had exhausted all her magic power. Virgo and Laxus were pleased with Lucy's victory in the fight. After that, Lucy returned to her tattered original clothes, and Kyria remained unconscious. Then Laxus was suddenly surprised because his memory became hazy, and he didn't know what had happened. He was also shocked when he felt the large wound on his body, so Virgo told him not to move. Laxus asked what had happened because he saw both Lucy and Kyria unconscious on the floor. Then Virgo bent over to Laxus and asked for a spanking, saying that's what he was doing earlier and Virgo wanted him to continue. But Laxus didn't believe Virgo. Laxus thought that Kyria must have a crazy skill, so he was very impressed with Lucy because her strength had grown so much. Now let's go to the part of the Great Labyrinth that wasn't destroyed by Ignia earlier. Here, Natsu and Suzaku are searching for Ignia, but Natsu is getting irritated because they still can't find him. Suzaku wondered why Natsu didn't know Ignia's scent, even though he was a dragon slayer. Natsu got angry because Suzaku doubted him and said they were the same. Suzaku said it was his first time meeting Ignia, so he couldn't trace his scent yet. Natsu wasn't happy because he couldn't smell Ignia even though he knew Ignia's scent was similar to their father Igniel's. Suzaku only now learned that Natsu's father was the fire dragon Igniel, but Natsu said that Ignia was Igniel's real son. As the two were walking, they were suddenly greeted by Happy, who was flying quickly towards Natsu. Natsu asked Happy if Lucy wasn't with him. Then Natsu worried about Lucy because he was sure Lucy would be safe as long as Happy was with her. Happy said he was sure Lucy was okay. Suzaku couldn't believe how much trust Natsu had in his cat. Let's go to Urza and Misaki's face-off, where Gajeel and Gray said they were more nervous about Urza's bloodthirst than the intense heat they felt earlier. Then Urza suddenly told the two not to interfere in their fight, because she alone was enough to face Misaki. So, Urza equipped her black wing armor. Misaki was not pleased with Urza underestimating her, and said it wouldn't make any difference if all three of them attacked her at once. Gray asked who Misaki was referring to as underestimating her. Carla mentioned how incredible Misaki's magic was. Then Gray uncomfortably agreed. Gray felt like they were about to witness a fight between Laxus and Gildarts. Misaki started their fight with Urza and allowed her to have a one-on-one if she really wanted. Misaki said Urza only had 5 seconds to defeat her. Then Urza suddenly vanished in front of Gajeel and Gray, who were surprised and worried. Apparently, Urza was teleported by Misaki to an unfamiliar place. And this was the blue dimension where Misaki also went for their duel. Misaki said that the blue dimension was a world where only she and Urza were present. Then Urza panicked because her body was just floating in nothingness, and she couldn't feel any strength in her legs. Then, while Misaki was gathering magic, she said that in this world, she was absolute. Using Blue Stream, Misaki threw a powerful twirling shockwave attack at Urza, and Urza was thrown when it hit her. Next, Urza suddenly reappeared in the original world where Gajeel, Gray, and Carla were. She was thrown here, crashing to the floor. Gray, Carla, and Gajeel were surprised because the two had suddenly vanished and returned within seconds, with Urza coming back badly beaten. Then Misaki suddenly told Urza that her 5 seconds were up, and Urza suddenly felt high-intensity magic around her. Then there was an extremely painfully intense magic aura surrounding Urza that made her scream loudly from the intense pain in her body. Misaki explained that 5 seconds in the blue dimension equaled 5 hours in the original world. So the equivalent of 5 seconds of damage Urza received in the blue dimension equaled 5 hours of torture and damage here. Due to the power of Misaki's attack, Urza's armor was destroyed, and her body was covered in wounds and bruises, so Gray and Gajeel immediately went to her. Carla now understood the multiplication of damage Urza received, and Misaki confirmed this. And because Misaki had already defeated Urza, she told the three that they were next to fight her. Gray and Gajeel thought carefully about what they could do to defend against Misaki's intense attack, because they knew they had no chance against Misaki in the blue dimension. Then Urza suddenly shouted aloud, "Wait!" and none of them could believe it. They were surprised because Urza still forced herself to get up even though she was wounded and panting. And Urza repeated what she said earlier, that she alone was enough to fight Misaki. Carla, Gajeel, and Gray disagreed with what Urza said. Misaki said she didn't expect Urza to recover. So her next plan was to give Urza 24 seconds of pain in the blue dimension so Urza would receive the equivalent of a whole day of torture. But Urza just said that a one whole day torture was lenient because she had experienced even more intense and longer tortures than this. Misaki was irritated, so to silence Urza, she immediately teleported herself to the blue dimension with Urza. Misaki told Urza here that in Misaki's world, she was the only one who had contact with any opponent she brought here, so this was the end for Urza now. We can see Urza bracing herself for the upcoming blue stream from Misaki. But Misaki was extremely surprised because Urza managed to dodge the blue stream and even told her that it was a wrong decision to use the same magic on her again. Then while Urza was changing into her magic armor, she explained that even if she couldn't move her body, her armor could still move. Misaki was surprised that Urza is still able to move by influencing her armor using magic. Urza immediately charged at Misaki and used Heaven's Wheel Blumenblatt on her. Urza's attack connected, but it seemed to only give Misaki a scratch, who was now very angry because Urza was defying her in her own world. Despite her injuries, Urza fought back against Misaki. Utilizing her sword magic spell, she unleashed a flurry of swords simultaneously. However, Misaki managed to evade them. She stated that she wouldn't let Urza defy her world. Suddenly, numerous swords appeared aimed at Urza, startling her. She realized that the swords were coming from the space itself. Misaki had mentioned that it was her world. Mimicking Urza's move, Misaki rained down swords upon her. Misaki declared that her imagination becomes power. She released countless swords, and at her command, they all slashed at Urza's body simultaneously. This put Urza in a difficult position, especially as her armor was being damaged. Misaki believed Urza couldn't move without her armor and commanded her to break and scatter. However, Urza suddenly re-equipped her armor, surprising Misaki. Urza noted that her magic allowed her to instantly re-equip armor, enabling her to continue fighting. As long as she was in her armor, Urza could move in that space. Misaki wondered where Urza was drawing such strength from. She commented that it was interesting, as there were people like Urza. It had been a long time since she had taken a fight seriously. She then attacked Urza again, landing a hit. Urza was surprised to realize that she tore through space. She attacked again, making it difficult for Urza. It seemed that the space itself was attacking her. With continuous attacks, Urza couldn't fight back effectively. Misaki introduced herself as Misaki, one of the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights of Diabolos. She mentioned that she had only used that power once before, during a sparring match with Kirin. Therefore, Urza should consider it an honor. Misaki continued her relentless assault on Urza, who couldn't see where the attacks were coming from. This time, the attack struck from behind, hitting Urza hard and damaging her armor once again. Urza quickly re-equipped her armor, but Misaki questioned whether that tactic would work again. Chains wrapped around Urza from her neck to her feet, capturing her completely. Despite her struggles, Urza couldn't break free. Misaki smiled, declaring that her world was finally as it should be. She stated that this was the end and cast a spell to make Urza feel 24 hours of pain. Misaki unleashed the blue stream, but Urza used her adamantine shield, blocking the attack. Misaki was shocked. Urza explained that if Misaki wanted to restrain a wizard, she should have used magic sealing stones. With that, Urza shattered the chains around her. She quickly re-equipped again, donning her Armadura fairy armor. She enchanted her sword and used heavenly body magic, charging at Misaki. Misaki couldn't believe it. It was her world, so it should be impossible for Urza to overcome it so easily. Suddenly, the surroundings changed color, matching Urza's scarlet hair. Misaki couldn't accept that Urza had overwritten her magic, turning the space into a scarlet dimension. Furious, Urza declared that the sword would serve as a reminder of how she had torn off her hair. She attacked with the fairy blade, Meteor, hitting Misaki squarely. Finally, Urza managed to defeat Misaki. Suddenly, the two collapsed and returned to the group. Gray and Gajeel noticed this and were concerned about their comrade, Urza, who was clearly in severe pain. Carla remarked that the damage Urza sustained in the alternate space was accumulating. Wendy suddenly arrived and used the Sky Dragon's breath to help Urza. Carla and Gajeel were happy to see her and Lily again. Gray assisted Urza, and Wendy mentioned that she had cast a bit of recovery magic, but the damage was more severe than she anticipated. Gajeel asked about a woman. She seemed to have sustained significant damage as well. Gray was impressed that despite the seemingly impossible task of fighting Misaki, Urza managed to defeat her. Gajeel then noticed the child Lily was carrying and asked who it was. Lily responded that the child was an enemy, but Wendy couldn't leave him there. Gajeel suggested they leave him since he was an enemy, but Wendy asked to lay the child next to the injured woman. Suddenly, Haku woke up and hugged Wendy, expressing a desire to stay with her. Lily was irritated, realizing that he was conscious the whole time. Gajeel hit him on the head, calling him a little punk and telling him not to jump like that, which made him dizzy. Now, they only needed to join up with Natsu, Lucy, Happy, and Laxus. They hoped to reunite with them soon. Meanwhile, Virgo was carrying Lucy, with a rope tied around them. Laxus questioned whether that is any way to carry someone. Virgo replied that she thought Lucy liked it too. Laxus felt sorry for Lucy, who was stuck with Virgo. Meanwhile, Natsu and Suzaku noticed something. It was a staircase leading underground. Natsu was excited and said it was time to attack, but Suzaku stopped him, asking if he had noticed the increasingly dense atmosphere filled with magic power as they descended each level. Natsu asked what that meant. Suzaku explained that it might indicate they were close to the bottom. Therefore, they should be cautious. Natsu simply replied that he knew, then ran down the stairs, with Happy chasing after him. Natsu remarked that if anything, Suzaku had been the one not being careful until now. Since Ignia appeared, he has always been ready to fight in the war. Suzaku pondered this as he followed him. Below, they observed their surroundings, and Suzaku noticed something peculiar about the air in that place. Natsu could smell Ignia there, confirming that he was somewhere on that floor. Elsewhere, Ignia stood in front of a glowing object. He mentioned that he had been waiting for a long time, but it seemed ready at last. He called out to Dogramag and examined what lay before him closely. Now, Ignia understood what Dogramag had done. Dogramag had used the heart there to fulfill their plan. Ignia considered Dogramag his true friend. It turned out to be Elefsiria's heart. Ignia mentioned that only Dogramag shared his vision. So, it was time to start the plan. Suddenly, a portal appeared beside him, and Celine emerged from it. They both were surprised to see each other. As they began to attack, Ignia remarked on Celine's unusual way of greeting. Celine declared that she would not let Ignia have it. Ignia explained the heart belonged to Elefsiria, the law dragon, from when he was still human. This heart knew the location of every weapon created by humans. Ignia knew that Celine intended to use it to kill him and Viernes. Celine said she never imagined that they too wanted human power. But Celine was shocked when Ignia stated he had no interest in those weapons, nor did he need the heart. As Celine tried to stop him, Ignia suddenly burned the heart. Celine was astonished by his actions. Elsewhere, Elefsiria felt what had happened, and Hikage was concerned for him. Hikage urged Elefsiria to hold on. Back with Celine, Ignia explained that Dogramag had used the heart to advance their plan, or, more accurately, that he was behind it. Celine's aura changed, and Ignia noted that she seemed to understand the plan. Celine responded that she would not allow him to proceed. Ignia was curious why she was siding with humans. She declared that the age of dragons was over. Ignia transformed into a dragon, countering that their age was just beginning. Celine also transformed into a dragon, and the two faced off. Ignia threatened to turn every trace of her into ash, but Selene retorted that it wouldn't happen before the moon's distortion erases him. Natsu and Suzaku were stunned as they witnessed the confrontation between the two dragons. The two dragon gods stared at each other intensely, prompting Suzaku to ask Natsu what they should do. Natsu commented that it was obvious the two were about to test their strength against each other, so of course they would join in, and he was already getting fired up. Suzaku was left speechless, and Happy remarked that this was just Natsu's usual behavior. Selene pointed out that no one would leave unscathed in a bout between two dragon gods like herself and Ignia. Ignia immediately unleashed a fire breath at her, asking if she wanted to gamble on this, and she countered with her moon breath, causing their attacks to clash and create a powerful explosion. The shockwave from their attacks sent Natsu, Suzaku, and Happy flying. Suzaku couldn't believe that while he couldn't even scratch the labyrinth walls, these dragon gods were easily destroying them. After releasing his fire breath, Ignia created numerous flame orbs behind him and swiftly sent them all towards Selene. They hit Selene's body solidly, causing significant damage, but as a counter, she quickly charged at Ignia and delivered a solid headbutt. She immediately followed it with a tail whip, which also struck Ignia's face, causing him to crash to the ground. A large part of the ground shattered as Ignia fell, and as Natsu watched these events unfold, he seemed to recall how Igneel had fought Acnologia, and his eyes widened as he remembered how Acnologia had killed Igneel. Selene asked Ignia if those were the flames of Igneel's son, the Fire Dragon King, and prepared to attack while telling him not to make her laugh. Selene sent her moonlight palm towards Ignia, and powerful magic energy emerged from her hand, hitting Ignia solidly. While watching this, Suzaku became frightened, realizing this was completely different from when Selene had fought him, and that this was her true power. After that, Ignia grinned and said that he should be the one telling Selene not to make him laugh, and he immediately released an extraordinary flame aura, shouting at her not to dare compare him to his father's level. Selene's eyes widened at this, and her body began to burn and ignite, causing her to scream in pain, while Ignia just laughed as she suffered. Suzaku cried out Selene's name in concern, while Ignia declared this was the end of the dragon who befriended humans. Irritated by this, Selene quickly entered her portal hole, prompting Ignia to tauntingly ask if she was running away. Selene suddenly emerged above Ignia, coming from a dimension with water, making Ignia realize she had done this to extinguish his flames. Just as Ignia was about to counter, Selene suddenly used her moonlight butterflies on him, and a large light beam surrounded by butterflies crashed down on Ignia, burying him in the ground. The damage from Selene's extraordinary attack was visible on Ignia's body, and Selene immediately charged again, saying that his greatest weakness was his arrogance, and he believed no one could defeat him. Ignia suddenly regained consciousness and shouted that he believed it because it was true. As Ignia was about to attack while Selene charged towards him, Natsu suddenly shouted for them to stop. This caught everyone's attention. Natsu's eyes widened as he continued to remember the times he had lost Igneel, and Igneel's last words that the days spent with Natsu were the happiest moments of his life. Selene then asked why he had stopped them, saying that regardless of who won between the two of them, they would still be rid of one problematic dragon god. Ignia suddenly said that Natsu was reminded of Igneel because of him, and that he knew about what had happened and how badly Acnologia had beaten him. Natsu listened with visible irritation, and Ignia added that their father was the strongest dragon of all, but Acnologia had still killed him. However, he said he was different, and if he had been in Igneel's position, he could have defeated Acnologia. He suddenly attacked Selene with his flame breath, which pierced through her body, and he said it was just like what he had done to her. Selene coughed up blood because of this, and Suzaku, Happy, and Natsu's eyes widened at what they saw. Joy was visible on Ignia's face as he watched Selene fall, while Natsu shouted at Ignia in anger. Shock was visible on Suzaku and Happy's face at the events, while Ignia said that wasn't their goal to defeat the 5 dragon gods, so they should be thanking him for already killing one of them. He asked what their problem was, and if Selene was their ally. Natsu angrily stated that he didn't care who defeated Ignia or Selene, but killing a comrade like Ignia did enraged him. Ignia pointed out that Selene wasn't his comrade, and if he ever had one, the only one who would be his comrade was Dogramag. Suddenly, someone spoke, questioning Ignia's statement, which caught Suzaku and Happy's attention, while Selene couldn't believe it. The labyrinth began to shake again, and while this was happening, Gray and the others felt it too, with Gajeel pointing out that it felt more like it was collapsing. Lily anxiously asked if they should escape now, so Carla said they hadn't found Natsu and their other companions yet. In Lax's situation, they also felt the strong trembling of the labyrinth, and while searching for their guildmates, someone suddenly called out to him, saying he had found him, and it turned out to be Kieran. Kieran said it was time to finish their fight, prompting Laxus to comment that he was still eager to fight. Kieran pointed out that now that the labyrinth was about to collapse, nothing was more important to him than finishing this. Because of that, Laxus told Virgo to go ahead, saying there was no harm in dealing with a dumbass every now and then, to which Virgo agreed and continued to exit the labyrinth. The two looked at each other seriously, and Kieran commented that this was a battle between the strongest in their guilds, so Laxus remarked that if he put it that way, there was no way he would lose. While this was happening, we returned to the situation with Ignia, Selene, Natsu, Suzaku, and Happy. The voice that spoke earlier suddenly said that Ignia haven't even come to his grave for 100 years, yet he's now saying they are still comrades? Ignia grinned at this, and Selene recognized the voice as Dogramag's, and a large part of the ground began to erupt as something started to emerge from it. Natsu and the others' eyes widened at this, and soon Dogramag emerged, apparently still alive. Ignia suddenly asked why he would visit the grave of a guy who was still alive, and Dogramag said that thanks to Eleftheria, he had been asleep for a very long time. He greeted Ignia with a hey and called him brother, while Ignia commented that it had been a long time since they last met. Suzaku was shocked and asked if Dogramag wasn't the one who created that labyrinth. Dogramag told Ignia that it was finally ready, to which Ignia agreed and said they would start the plan at the promised place. Happy wondered what this meant, and Dogramag told Ignia to go ahead to the place he mentioned, which confused Ignia. So he explained that he hadn't woken up in 100 years, so he needed to stretch, and it looked like many delicious humans had entered the labyrinth. Ignia told him to do as he pleased, but not to kill Natsu because he was his prey, and when Dogramag noticed that was the human raised by Igniel, he understood Ignia's desire. Ignia seriously told him that he didn't care if he killed all the humans there, but killing Natsu was strictly off-limits, so Dogramag asked if he could just beat him up, to which Ignia said as long as he didn't kill him, because he wanted Natsu to see the world they would create. Dogramag said he understood, and after that, Ignia flew away from the labyrinth, so Natsu tried to follow him, but Dogramag quickly stopped him. Dogramag told Natsu that if he wanted to chase Ignia, that was fine, but he would eat all the humans there. He asked if Natsu wouldn't regret it, and think that if only he had defeated Dogramag, it wouldn't have happened. Because of this, Natsu was forced not to continue, so Dogramag laughed at him and said he was easy to read. Dogramag said that even so, the result would be the same, and Natsu wouldn't be able to defeat him. He began to transform and added that nevertheless, he knew how strong Natsu was, and he had used Eleftheria's heart to gather intel over the past 100 years. Dogramag gradually became human, catching Suzaku and Happy's attention, and he added that he might not be able to use his true power having just woken up, but Natsu might be a good match for him. Soon his transformation was complete, and he challenged Natsu to charge, introducing himself as the Earth Dragon God, Dogramag. Natsu's eyes flashed at him, and he said that Dogramag was the creator of that labyrinth, and he himself was the labyrinth. While this was happening, outside the labyrinth, Eleftheria suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and Hikage was happy that he was okay. Eleftheria was very surprised that Dogramag had used his heart as a catalyst to hide his life force. He wondered, if that was the case, why Dogramag had still created that labyrinth and what he might be trying to accomplish. Dogramag and Natsu stared at each other, while Happy and Suzaku worried about the situation, and Celine was weakened on one side. Dogramag raised his hand, causing a large part of the floor Natsu was standing on to shatter. He directed all of it toward Natsu, who tried to block it, but he couldn't break it. After blocking, Natsu quickly jumped from one piece of debris to another to get closer to Dogramag, but unexpectedly, Dogramag quickly appeared in front of him. Fortunately, Suzaku intervened between them, blocking Dogramag's attack, commenting that the fire seemed somewhat effective. As they landed on the ground, Natsu shouted that he could fight Dogramag one-on-one, but if they needed to protect their friends, they would have to team up, to which Suzaku agreed. Dogramag smiled, deciding they were worth eating. Meanwhile, we return to the face-off between Laxus and Kirin. The two stared at each other, and soon Kirin sent his coffin attack towards Laxus. When it hit, Laxus felt the same sensation he had felt before. He wondered what was inside that coffin but quickly brushed it off, saying it didn't matter and that he just needed to destroy it. Laxus prepared to attack, using the Thunder Dragon's roar towards Kirin, who countered with his own Yellow Dragon's roar. Their attacks collided, causing a powerful explosion. Laxus was surprised to see that Kirin's element was also lightning, asking if he was a dragon slayer too. Kirin introduced himself as Kirin the Yellow Dragon and explained that all the dragon slayers in Diabolos were called dragon eaters. Laxus asked if they ate dragons, and Kirin confirmed, saying he had eaten the Yellow Dragon, Election, who was also known as the Thunder Dragon King. Laxus's eyes widened, and Kirin added that their battle was perhaps destined. Kirin raised his hand, and numerous thunder strikes began to rain down, hitting Laxus solidly. Laxus was hurt and couldn't believe it because lightning attacks shouldn't affect him. Kirin explained that it was because he was the king of lightning. Kirin pointed at Laxus, and electricity began to crawl towards him. Laxus managed to dodge and smiled, asking if that meant the soul of that Dragon King was inside Kirin's coffin. Kirin just stared at him and tried to attack with his coffin again. As Laxus dodged, he wondered aloud if he should be swinging a soul around like that. When the coffin hit Laxus, Kirin commented that it was his right as the one who had eaten a king. As the coffin struck Laxus, he felt the same sensation as before, as if he were being pulled into it. Kirin suddenly smiled, causing Laxus's eyes to widen in disbelief as he realized something. Could it be possible? He wondered to himself, and then Kirin asked if he was catching on. Kirin mentioned that Laxus had a Dragon Slayer lacrima implanted in his body, which was the processed heart of a certain dragon. The Thunder Dragon King, Election, the dragon Kirin had eaten. Laxus asked what he meant by that, and Kirin explained that the heart and soul of Election were resonating with each other. Laxus dismissed this as nonsense. Kirin reminded Laxus that he had mentioned fate, saying that Election was crying out for his heart to be returned. Laxus retorted that it was all nonsense, especially coming from someone who had eaten the dragon's body. Kirin charged while explaining that he and Election had become one, and the only thing missing was the heart. He sent a powerful lightning punch at Laxus, but Laxus managed to block it, and Kirin seriously demanded that Laxus return the heart. Laxus stared at Kirin and explained that his father had forced that thing into his body when he was a child, and in truth, he didn't want it. But then, Laxus seriously stated that, on the other hand, he would free the imprisoned soul within Kirin. They stared at each other again, and Kirin swiftly attacked with his coffin. Laxus dodged quickly and countered with a kick towards Kirin, but Kirin blocked it with his arm and immediately prepared to counter, surprising Laxus. Kirin unleashed a barrage of lightning punches, hitting Laxus solidly and sending him flying. Kirin taunted him, asking if he really thought he could defeat a king. As Laxus fell, Kirin threw his coffin at him and called out to Election. The coffin opened and swallowed Laxus, pulling him inside. Kirin shouted that this was Election's chance to devour Laxus and reclaim his heart, becoming whole again. As Laxus was being consumed by Kirin's coffin, the scene shifted to 30 years ago, just after George had defeated Election. Young Kirin was in awe of George, who explained that this was the Thunder Dragon King, Election. George instructed Kirin to eat Election's flesh to gain his powers. Initially hesitant, Kirin eventually did so while sitting by a bonfire. Kirin wondered why he couldn't eat Election's heart, and George explained that he planned to sell it to the continent in the south, where a shady wizard might process it into a gem. Sometime later, within the Diabolos Guild, Kirin explained to George that since eating Election's flesh, he had been plagued by constant nightmares, thinking it was the dragon's curse. George dismissed the notion, reminding Kirin that they were dragon eaters and that eating dragons was their purpose. Later, while trying to sleep, Kirin heard whispers urging him to return the heart. The voice told him that if he took its life, he should also take responsibility and return the heart. Kirin screamed, feeling helpless, when Wraith arrived, clapping to get his attention and asking if he was okay. Kirin, trembling, suddenly felt his headache stop and asked what had happened. Wraith explained it was similar to his dragon spirit. Wraith elaborated that these spirits made their presence known to dragon eaters, and he understood because he was also a spirit. Kirin noticed the small treasure chest Wraith held. Wraith explained that he had locked Election's soul inside that box, shocking Kirin. However, Wraith suggested that the box was too small for such a spirit, and that a slightly larger one might be more appropriate. Wraith offered the box to Kirin, who refused, saying he didn't want it and that it should be erased. Wraith explained that the spirit had lingering attachments to the world and couldn't be erased, just like him. Wraith emphasized that Kirin had stolen Election's life, so he had to take responsibility and live with the spirit's voice. Back in the present, Election continued to demand the return of his heart. Kirin screamed that the time had come. Kirin's coffin glowed brightly and began to crack. Kirin exclaimed that this was what Election had long sought, the person who possessed his heart. The coffin shattered completely, revealing a hand holding Election's heart, and it was Laxus, who had pulled it out of his own body. Kirin's eyes widened in disbelief. Laxus explained that he had already told him he had no attachment to the lacrima in his body. Kirin shouted that it was impossible because that was the source of Laxus's magic power, yet Laxus had still pulled it out. Laxus agreed, saying he was fed up with Kirin's eat it, devour it crap, so he removed it. Laxus then dropped the lacrima, and Kirin screamed Election's name. Something began to flow around them, moving towards Laxus. As it swirled around him, Laxus explained that Kirin had a significant misconception about one thing. Kirin wondered what it was, and Laxus clarified that he had heard Election's voice inside that coffin. Kirin had thought that being together for so long would make Election attached to him. However, Election never thought of Kirin even for a moment. The proud king of the Thunder Dragons only considered how to reclaim his heart, continuously thinking and searching for ways to protect his dignity and kill the one who desecrated his body. Election's soul gradually converged in Laxus's hand, and Kirin realized, to his shock, that Election had done all this to kill him. Laxus added that now Election had found the one who would kill Kirin, and he had consumed Election's soul. Laxus prepared to attack, declaring that his magic was like roaring thunder. After charging up, he unleashed the Thunder Dragon King's red lightning, hitting Kirin's face solidly and sending him flying. Kirin was visibly damaged from the attack, and Laxus laughed, asking if Kirin really thought he heard Election's voice. He had only been messing with him. What they saw was magic power, and he had consumed it. Laxus then added that now he felt he was free from his father's curse. Switching back to Dogramag, Natsu and Suzaku had joined forces against him. The Earth Dragon God seemed unbreakable, and the two stared at him intensely. Happy was nervous while the dragon form of Selene lay on the ground. Natsu and Suzaku were ready to fight and attacked Dogramag simultaneously. However, with just a movement of his fingers, Dogramag changed the layout of the labyrinth. Natsu managed to dodge the blocks and prepared to attack with his fire dragon's iron fist at full strength. But the attack had no effect on Dogramag. He moved his right hand, forming bricks into a massive fist that punched Natsu, burying him in the ground. Happy was worried about him. Next, Suzaku charged using his Kurnugi-style sword-drawing art, Underworld Purgatory Dance, attempting to slash him. But Dogramag reminded them that the walls of the labyrinth were indestructible. They recalled what had happened earlier. If they couldn't break the labyrinth, how did they think they could defeat him? Dogramag then prepared to attack, this time using the Earth Dragon God Seikitora, which caused the surroundings to crumble. He declared, "Let the cries of the earth tremble." However, Natsu was not easily defeated. He found a part of the labyrinth and punched it with all his strength, aiming at Dogramag. But he shattered it effortlessly. Natsu then leaped and kicked with his fire dragon talons, striking Dogramag's head. But Dogramag responded, "No dice," and knocked him down again. Suzaku attempted another attack with his sword, but Dogramag caught it with his fingers and threw it back at him, sending Suzaku flying. Both of them managed to land properly and prepared to attack again. They admitted that Dogramag was incredibly tough and that their attacks do not faze him. Meanwhile, Selene reverted to her human form and mentioned that Dogramag was a dragon renowned as a god, making humans no match for him. Happy was shocked to see her. She explained that if she wasn't injured, she would confront Dogramag herself. The two were clearly struggling, and Selene revealed that even Dogramag had a weakness, which surprised Happy. She explained that the labyrinth itself was Dogramag's body. To create such a large labyrinth, he scattered gemstones around the area that sealed his power. Due to those stones, the labyrinth expanded. Some of those stones had already been absorbed into his body when he rematerialized. However, some of those stones have yet to be accounted for. These stones contained portions of his power, but as of now, they were also giving him strength. In short, if all those stones were destroyed, his power would disappear. Happy asked how many stones there were, and Selene replied that there were 72. Happy was astonished at the number. The stones were scattered throughout the labyrinth, making it difficult to find them, as he noted. Selene reassured them not to worry, as they could follow the magic power of the stones. And they shouldn't forget that she could connect to space. Suddenly, a portal appeared showing the other fairy tale members, who were surprised to see Happy and Selene. Happy talked to them, but Selene suddenly pulled him and traveled to the other side. They couldn't believe it and asked what was happening and where the others were. Selene asked Gajeel if he had found the gemstone. He pulled something from his pocket and asked if that was what she meant. Selene took it and explained that it was part of the Earth Dragon God Dogramag's power, Dogra Core. She then smashed it, saying that now there were only 71 Dogra Cores left. She asked for their help in destroying the rest. They were puzzled and asked what she was suddenly talking about. Happy explained that there was no time to explain. Right now, Natsu was fighting the Earth Dragon God, and if they didn't destroy the stones, Natsu would be defeated. Wendy was shocked to hear about the Earth Dragon God, asking if it wasn't supposed to be dead. Happy revealed that he had been revived and was rampaging. None of Natsu's attacks were working against him, causing Happy to cry for his friend. Despite her injuries, Urza said she would help. Gray was concerned and asked if she was okay. Selene created another portal, this time showing Lucy and Laxus. Now it seemed that everyone was there. Laxus was curious about who she was and what she was doing there. She replied that she would explain later. For now, it looked like the world was about to be destroyed. She pleaded with them to lend her their power so they may defeat Dogramag. Back to the battle between Dogramag, Natsu, and Suzaku, it was clear they were no match for him. Suzaku remarked that even with their combined strength, it would be impossible to defeat him. No matter how many of them there were, their attacks wouldn't be effective. Natsu replied, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Dogramag couldn't believe that Ignia was obsessed with a wimpy kid like him. He said they've known each other for so long, but thought of Ignia as weird. He called Igneel a weirdo who liked humans too. Like father, like son, he added. Natsu proudly declared that he was Igneel's son, so there couldn't be anyone weirder than him. Suzaku was puzzled, asking Natsu where he's trying to assert his dominance. Suzaku commented that Dogramag himself was unusual. He created a labyrinth while pretending to be dead for 100 years. Smiling, he said that he really died for a bit. Who would have thought that the old man Eleftheria was that strong? He confessed that he let his guard down, which is why Eleftheria managed to kill him. Natsu couldn't believe Eleftheria was that powerful. Dogramag explained that he didn't die for nothing. He consumed the heart of Eleftheria's dragon side and returned to the earth. After eating the heart, a miracle happened, and he woke up again. It was another chance at life, but he was almost powerless. To rebuild his power within the earth, his body regenerated over 100 years. Suzaku then asked what that had to do with creating the labyrinth. Dogramag admitted it was Ignia's idea. Ignia suggested he create a massive maze in the ground while he was building his power. Suzaku questioned the purpose of that, but Dogramag answered that they didn't need to know. He attacked them again, stating that while Natsu was off limits, everyone was fine to eliminate. He then focused on Suzaku, burying him into the ground. Natsu was concerned for him. Back with Celine, she told the other Fairy Tail Guild members that she would send them to the locations of the remaining 71 Dogra cores. Carla still couldn't completely understand the details of what she said. She asked if it was true that if they didn't destroy the stones, Natsu wouldn't be able to defeat the Earth Dragon God. Happy confirmed this. However, Lily believed that Natsu could do it. Celine countered, saying that he couldn't manage against Dogramag. Laxus proposed that they should back up Natsu in his fight against Dogramag. Celine replied that no matter how many of them there were, it would be useless if they couldn't damage him. Winnie agreed, saying that was a good point. Gajeel said they just gotta move on. Since they needed to find 71 cores, they would need everyone's help. Lucy then called upon Plu and Pixis. Pixis pointed in the direction of one of the cores. However, Celine said she already knew where they were. She opened various portals, and Urza urged everyone to go. They all split up to find the cores. Celine seemed weak, so before entering the portal, Gray asked if she was okay. She replied that she still had enough strength for this. Curious, Gray asked why she decided to help them. Celine mentioned that she hadn't told Fairy Tail yet, but her wish was to kill the 5 dragon gods. Gray was puzzled and asked if she wasn't on their side. Celine replied that they were her enemies. She had sought weapons to distort various worlds and bury the 5 dragon gods. Whether using the whiteout magic, the group of dragon eaters, or the ancient weapon, as per Eleftheria's disembodied heart. But now, she finally understood. The power she sought was the wizards from Fairy Tail. Gray was shocked and asked if she wanted to kill the 5 dragon gods to take over the world. Celine denied it. She coughed up blood and said she desired a world where people weren't troubled by dragons. She wished to live peacefully as a human while watching the moon with a drink in her hand. Gray asked why they should believe her. Celine replied that it was up to them what they wanted to believe, but from now on, they should act for the sake of their friends. Gray agreed and was about to enter the portal, but he had something to say to Celine first. If she wanted a peaceful world, she shouldn't drink with naked men as appetizers, calling it bad taste. Celine just smiled and said, "Not a chance." Elsewhere in the labyrinth, Lucy found a Dogra core. She wondered how to break it and decided to use the Lucy kick. She kicked it and shattered it. Wendy, Urza, Gajeel, also found and destroyed cores. Even Happy, Carla, Lily, Plu, and Pixis broke Dogra cores themselves. Now, they only needed to find 62 more. Wendy returned through the portal, and Celine immediately prepared the next location, so Wendy jumped to the new place. On the other side, Gray was surprised to see a person in the area where he was assigned. He wondered if Celine's power had placed him in the wrong spot. He called out to the person and noticed he was holding a Dogra core. He called again, but the person ran away. Gray introduced himself, but the person claimed it was a treasure he had found and wouldn't give it up. Gray was shocked to realize he wasn't a guild member. He asked who he was. Gray used his ice magic to stop him. The person realized Gray was a wizard and asked what a wizard was doing there. Gray replied that was his line. He asked who the hell he was and added that what he was holding wasn't a treasure. Gray asked if he was a member of the Diabolos Guild. The man thought about it and remembered that Diabolos was the #1 wizard guild on that continent. Gray couldn't believe they were that strong. The man replied that, for a wizard guild, they were. He introduced himself as Sai, from the #1 alchemist guild in that area, the Gold Owl. Gray was puzzled when he heard about the Alchemist Guild. Gray didn't fully understand the details, but he asked if alchemy wasn't just like magic. Sai said it'd be a pain in the ass to explain further. Nevertheless, Gray said he wouldn't let him have that stone. Sai reiterated that he found that treasure and wouldn't let Gray take it. But Gray insisted it wasn't a treasure. It was a part of the dragon that created the labyrinth. Sai knew this and said that was why it was a treasure. It would be a crucial alchemy material for expanding his guild. With that, it seemed Gray had no choice but to fight him. Sai was surprised and asked if he thought it was okay for Mr. Wizard, who doesn't know alchemy, to pick a fight. Gray used his ice make, while Sai used transmute and said he would change his form using the love bond. Juvia appeared, looking confused. She said her magic was gone and her voice had changed. She looked at her body and was shocked. She couldn't understand what was happening. It was Gray, and he had been transformed into Juvia. Sai admitted he had transmuted the bond into the woman he loved. He asked Gray how it felt and if he was happy with it. Gray was still in shock. Sai added that due to the bond's transmutation, Gray took the form of that woman and lost his powers. Gray was shocked that he couldn't use magic. Sai shared that there was also a technique called rival bond. However, that was useless because it would make him into someone as strong as him. But if it turned him into a woman, Sai could easily defeat him. Gray was furious about this. Sai also mentioned that alchemy has a side effect. On the ship, the Fairy Tale Guild members were shocked. What had happened? Someone asked. It was Juvia, asking if something's on her face, but one of them replied that she wasn't Juvia. They were confused as to how it happened that he suddenly turned into Gray but still spoke like Juvia. Meanwhile, Mira Jane welcomed him back. Juvia was confused about the situation and checked her body. She couldn't believe she had taken Gray's form because of her deep love for him. Master Makarov asked if it was a form of alchemy, which puzzled Levy. She had heard stories about alchemy that's no different from a curse. Juvia wondered if it was okay to undress now that she had become Gray. But they told her she was already half naked. Suddenly, Juvia fainted, and so they brought her to infirmary. Back to Gray, he cursed. Sai commented that little girls like her shouldn't use such language. Gray was annoyed and told Sai not to belittle Juvia. He opened his shirt, surprising Sai. Gray said he almost forgot and was about to undress as he normally would. Sai used Transmute Destruction Chain. Gray thought it was similar to Maker Magic, where one can create something and use it as a weapon. Sai threw the chain at him, but Gray managed to dodge. Sai was surprised by his ability. Gray smiled and said that he could easily move in that body. The physical abilities of Juvia are still the same. Sai couldn't believe that the woman was a wizard too. Gray laughed and asked if Sai had really transformed him without considering that. Sai attacked again, but Gray dodged once more. If he were Urza, he would be dead by now, Gray said. Sai asked who Urza was. Gray implied that Sai didn't think about the possibility that the woman he swapped him with could be stronger. Sai was taken aback, admitting he hadn't considered that. Gray called him an idiot. Sai said that usually, women are weak. Gray asked how he could say that, especially in today's times. Where he's from, women are strong. Gray asked if there were no strong women in their guild. Sai thought about it and mentioned the Signario sisters. There you go, Gray replied. Sai was anxious about this and scratched his head. Gray was confused by his response. Sai said he would die and that he needed to take the stone with him. Sai told him to stay out of his way while he threw the chain, but Gray was surprised with his increased speed. Gray was worried about being hit by the chain, but fortunately, his body turned to water, which puzzled Sai. He asked what was happening to his body. Gray laughed, saying it was Juvia's magic. Now he understood. It's not that he can't use any magic. He just couldn't use his own. This meant he could use Juvia's magic. Gray thought it wasn't going to be easy. But water magic and ice magic seemed quite similar, like they belonged to the same magic family. So, he just needed to concentrate and find her magic power. Sai asked what he was mumbling about. Gray focused and finally found Juvia's magic. He decided to show Sai how strong Juvia was. He used water make, and Sai was astonished, calling it water alchemy. Gray prepared to attack, and Sai wondered what was happening and how Gray managed to transmute water. Gray positioned himself and used Juvia's water make lance magic. Sai dodged and couldn't believe Gray formed spears from water. Next, Gray used hammer, causing water to crash down on Sai. Gray was confused since the attack only made sense when it was solid ice. He thought about how Juvia used water. He concentrated, trying to think of Juvia, but all he could recall was her obsession with him, chasing him, and getting annoyed whenever she saw a love rival. Gray was frustrated because that wasn't good enough. Then he remembered the water slicer magic, realizing that water could be turned into a blade. Sai became anxious, thinking Gray was a dangerous opponent, and decided he needed to break their bond. Gray regretted that just as he was getting used to his connection with Juvia, he used water make battle axe, hitting Sai directly. Next, he attempted the Gungnir spell, trapping Sai in water. Sai struggled and thought Gray was a tough opponent, realizing that things were not looking good. He decided to use his forbidden technique, the weak bond. Sai instructed Gray to think of the person he looked down on the most. Gray thought about the person he considered the weakest. Sai smiled and cast weak bond, causing Gray to revert from Juvia's form to his own. Sai was shocked that his technique had failed. Gray scratched his head, realizing he thought of himself as a weakling. He had considered many possibilities, but couldn't fool himself. This meant he saw himself as the weakest. Sai's eyes widened, not expecting such modesty. Gray simply replied, "It's not so bad. Because he was weak, he had friends. Since he was weak, he had a guild." Sai grew even more frustrated. Now that Gray's powers and form had returned, he admitted that even though he saw himself as weak, it was a different story when he was with his guild. He could be as strong as he wanted to be. He used Ice Make, Cold Slicer, finally taking down Sai. As a result, Sai dropped the stone. Gray approached him and apologized, saying his hands were tied. He then crashed the gemstone there. Gray noticed Sai whispering, "God brother," which made him think. Back on the ship, Juvia woke up, saying she dreamed she became Gray because she was thinking about him so much. Kana replied that she did become Gray. Elfman whispered they should let it go, as Juvia might faint again. Meanwhile, Suzaku was lying on the ground after being attacked by Dogramag. Natsu was worried about him, but Dogramag stomped on Suzaku's face. He said that since ancient times, many disasters had befallen those who defied the earth. He remarked how foolish humans were, no matter the era. Natsu angrily said, "Even if they are, humans still strive to live life to the fullest." Dogramag questioned this, especially coming from Natsu. He mentioned that Natsu had a dragon scent, but then corrected himself, saying he smelled like a demon. Annoyed, Natsu told him to get his nose checked. That was in the past. He had chosen to be human. He declared himself as Natsu of Fairy Tail. He then punched and attacked Dogramag. This time, Dogramag finally felt it. Dogramag was surprised, noticing damage to his body. How was this possible? It was because the Fairy Tail Guild members were relentlessly destroying the Dogra cores. With Celine's help, only 42 cores remained. Gajeel found another one, but was alarmed when he smelled dragons. He was puzzled when the 8-dragon god Serena from the Gold Owl Alchemist Guild greeted him. He faced him, and Gajeel couldn't believe it was God Serena. God Serena was surprised that he had heard about him. He struck a pose and said he was honored, calling Gajeel a monster. Gajeel, irritated, replied that he was human. "Can you blame me?" asked God Serena. "Until now, all the creatures there are monsters made of stone." So, he thought he was a humanoid monster too. Gajeel introduced himself and said he was from Fairy Tail and used to be with the council too. God Serena was surprised. Gajeel mentioned that he had heard about God Serena from Warrod. He said that God Serena had betrayed Ishgar and joined Zerif and was killed by Acnologia. God Serena just smiled, saying Warrod was still joking around like that. He moved again to strike a pose, saying he wasn't dead. He almost died since he let his guard down, but he was lucky because someone from the Alchemist Guild, Gold Owl, saved him. So, he went to the northern continent. Gajeel was curious about this Alchemist Guild. God Serena admitted they had transmuted the parts of his body that he lost, then welcomed him into the guild. Gajeel pointed out that wizards weren't alchemists. God Serena replied that he is a wizard. Then he asked if Gajeel was a dragon slayer, and Gajeel confirmed it. God Serena proudly mentioned that he was called the #1 wizard in Ishgar, the hybrid theory. He said he was the 8-dragon God Serena. Gajeel had heard that God Serena had 8 lacrima in his body. That's right, and speaking of Fairy Tail, is there someone famous from there? God Serena asked. He suddenly mentioned Gildarts and said he was stronger than him. Gajeel couldn't believe it. Confidently, God Serena stated that yes, he was the best in Ishgar. Now that their introductions were done, he suggested Gajeel leave if he had no further business and bid him farewell. Gajeel retorted that there was no way he was leaving without the gemstone. He had a mission to break them. God Serena showed the gemstone and asked if that was what he meant. Well, his master from the Gold Owl also instructed him to bring it to him. Therefore, he wouldn't let it be destroyed. He revealed that their master and the Signario sisters were on another level. He admired them, saying the world was vast, and it made one realize how low-level Ishgar was. Gajeel apologized for being in a hurry. If he didn't break the stone, his friend would die. But God Serena stopped him, saying even the 4 emperors of Ishgar couldn't defeat him. Gajeel just laughed, saying they were old. He readied himself to attack, saying he was also old. He used the Iron Dragon Sword, while God Serena countered with the Diamond Dragon's Stronghold Breaker. The punch was visibly powerful, hitting Gajeel's face with such force that he fell to the ground. He couldn't believe that one hit caused so much damage. God Serena wondered about the Iron Dragon. He said this is one of the 8 dragons within him, the Diamond Dragon. Iron was weak against him. Gajeel readied himself again, saying he had another one inside him too. God Serena was curious as he saw the shadow approaching him. Gajeel used the Iron Shadow Dragon technique while God Serena countered with Flash Dragon's Augite Heavens. The surroundings suddenly lit up. God Serena then attacked with Gale Dragon's Furrying Moonflowers, striking Gajeel and sending him flying again. God Serena just smiled as Gajeel couldn't believe how powerful his opponent was. He explained that he had 8 dragons within him, fire, water, wind, earth, thunder, stone, light, and darkness. God Serena boasted that there was a time he was called the man loved by the dragon gods. Of course, he said he loved himself too. Gajiel asked if he knew about the moon dragon god and the earth dragon god there. God Serena confirmed he did. Now, he asked if Gajiel, whom he called the man abandoned by the dragon gods, had any last words. Gajiel was already bloodied from the attacks. Back with Selene, Lily returned from his portal and asked how many were left. She replied that 21 remained. But she mentioned that her partner hadn't returned yet and asked if Lily had seen him. Lily was surprised. Back on the ship, Levi was seen contemplating by the side. Biska asked if she was okay and why she seemed worried. Levi admitted she was thinking about how she could be a parent with such a small body. Biska said it didn't matter whether the body was big or small. She herself managed, so Levi would be fine too. Levi said Biska was dependable, but Biska denied it, saying she used to be nothing but a bad apple. Levi just smiled and said, "The same goes for Gajiel then." Even though he looked rough, Biska said it was clear Gajiel cared about her. Levi acknowledged that she knew it too. Suddenly, she felt a strong desire to see Gajiel because of that. Gajiel, now injured, mumbled Levi's name, surprising God Serena that his last words were a woman's name. He remarked it was a shame he wouldn't see her again. God Serena bid him farewell. Gajiel was sitting, bloodied, when Lily approached him. Lily asked what had happened and tried to wake him up. Gajiel managed to speak up and said he was okay. He mentioned that the enemy took the stone and asked Lily to chase after it. Lily asked where it went, but Gajiel admitted he didn't know. He confessed that his sense of smell wasn't as sharp as a dragon slayer's. Besides, if the enemy had trashed him, he might not be able to handle it. Gajiel got irritated and insisted that he wasn't trash. He stood up angrily, surprising Lily. He said the only thing the enemy trashed was the name of Fairy Tale. Lily pondered this and said he did got trashed. However, Gajiel insisted again that he didn't. Gajiel struggled to stand, so Lily transformed to carry him. Lily asked if he could still smell the enemy. Despite his injured nose, Gajiel could still smell the enemy and pointed the way. Meanwhile, the other Fairy Tale members, Urza, Lucy, Gray, and others, continued to destroy the Dogra cores scattered around. Even the Exceeds and the celestial spirits summoned by Lucy helped. Now, only 2 Dogra cores remained. Selene said that if they destroyed those, Dogramag would weaken. Gajiel was searching for one core, but she had no idea where the last one was. Suddenly, someone arrived holding a stone, surprising the Fairy Tale members. It was Kiria. They were puzzled by her arrival. She smashed it and clarified that they shouldn't get the wrong idea. She was doing it for her friend, Suzaku. With that, only one core remained, and that just leaves Gajiel. Laxus approached Kiria, patting her head and saying she had a cute side after all. Happy and Carla emerged from the portal, saying they couldn't find Gajiel. Even Lily had disappeared after going to search for him. Urza was worried about Gajiel, while Gray mentioned encountering a weird man, thinking it must be connected to that. Selene fell down, exhausted, prompting Kiria to call her Master and tell her to keep it together. Selene admitted she had overexerted herself. Gray asked Wendy if she could heal her, and Wendy replied that she had been casting healing magic on Selene, but it seemed Selene's magic was completely drained. Suddenly, the portals closed, causing everyone to panic. Lucy suggested they go help Natsu. However, Selene stopped them, urging them to leave the labyrinth and trust their friends. Lucy was stunned, while Urza decided they would trust Gajiel and Lily. Meanwhile, Gajiel and Lily continued their search, with Gajiel guiding Lily on where to go. Lily was irritated by Gajiel's way of giving commands. They were shocked to realize they were heading towards the entrance. Did their target leave the labyrinth? They wondered. for figures appeared behind them. LF Syria, the Crow Hikage. Gajeel still knew nothing about Sai, and God Serena was there. God Serena, surprised to see Gajeel alive, noted that he was a tough one. Lily and Gajeel worked together to try and bring him down. Lily attacked, but God Serena, having already bid farewell to Gajeel, said he had no interest in fighting them anymore. Lily attacked with his sword while Gajeel used the Iron Shadow Dragon's Iron Slash to deliver an uppercut. God Serena just smiled and called him clever. He countered with the Cavern Dragon's Earth Collapse, causing the ground beneath them to crumble. The two were irritated. God Serena entrusted them to Sai, who accepted the mission. Sai used the Love Bond transmutation, transforming Gajeel. Gajeel was puzzled by this, and Lily was shocked to see Gajeel turned into Levi. Back on the ship, Biska and Levi continued their conversation, with Biska reassuring her not to worry about Gajeel. But Biska's eyes widened as Gajeel suddenly appeared before her. Lily was frustrated that God Serena had escaped. Gajeel, however, wasn't concerned about that and surprised Lily by focusing on the fact that he was now in Levi's body. Gajeel warned Sai not to scratch Levi's body, or he would crush him. Sai was hit hard and wondered what was with the women in that guild. Lily reminded Gajeel that they needed to follow God Serena. Suddenly, Gajeel reverted to his normal form, revealing that he had taken the stone earlier. Lily was astonished that he had managed to do that during the uppercut. With their mission accomplished, the last Dogra core was destroyed. They decided to deal with God Serena another time. Celine announced that all the Dogra cores had finally been destroyed, and Dogramag felt it. When Natsu delivered a powerful punch, it landed and was finally felt by the Earth Dragon God. He didn't expect this. He wondered if his Dogra cores had been destroyed. Surprisingly, he just laughed and said, "This is something." He mentioned that a human and a god were fighting, and he had never had such a significant handicap before. Natsu prepared to attack again, while Dogramag smiled and said, "Bring it on." He was sure he would enjoy this. Natsu attacked using the Fire Dragon's talons, but Dogramag managed to grab his leg. Natsu got thrown across the room and slammed against the wall. Next, Dogramag used the Earth Dragon God's Jie Marugio, causing his hand to transform and become encased in labyrinth stones. Natsu didn't back down and punched back. The clash between the two was intense. Natsu used the Fire Dragon King's Destruction Fist, destroying Dogramag's large stone fist. Dogramag was pushed back and couldn't believe Natsu had done that. Natsu prepared to attack again and ran towards Dogramag. Of course, Dogramag fought back, unleashing a series of punches and kicks at Natsu, leaving him bloodied. Despite the beating, Natsu didn't give up. Dogramag asked how stubborn Natsu was. He spread his arms and said it was time for a dirt nap. Natsu was surrounded by stones, but suddenly, Suzaku appeared and sliced through the labyrinth stones. Suzaku split each of the stones, saving Natsu. Dogramag's face showed his annoyance, and Natsu couldn't believe Suzaku was okay. Suzaku noticed something had changed. Now, he could slice through those stones. Natsu was surprised and tried to punch a large stone on the ground, but it didn't break. As Suzaku had said, it could only be cut. It seemed Dogramag had weakened for some unknown reason. But if he had to guess, it was because Celine and the cat had left the front lines, implying they had done something. Natsu proudly praised Happy, saying he always knew Happy was awesome. Now, it was time to show their power. Natsu agreed and said they should show what they were made of, with the power of super fires. Suzaku was surprised that Natsu had changed the name. Dogramag, furious, apologized to Ignia. He knew he had said he wouldn't kill Natsu, but Natsu had really angered him. It was like those arrogant humans who defied the gods. Suddenly, Dogramag transformed into his dragon form, startling everyone. He threatened to kill them. He prepared to attack, and they couldn't believe his speed. He stomped on Natsu and Suzaku and used the spell Earth Dragon God's G Kormiya. This made it hard for Natsu and Suzaku to breathe. Dogramag planned to make them part of his labyrinth. The two were stuck inside, but their determination to win was surprising. Dogramag was worried when he saw they still hadn't given up. He said they wouldn't be able to move or breathe there. Their remaining strength would return to the earth. However, suddenly the ground shattered, surprising Dogramag. It broke apart, and Natsu and Suzaku emerged. Suzaku thought he mentioned cutting down his honor, but his power was exhausted. Dogramag was shocked when Suzaku threw his weapon to Natsu and told him to wreathe it in flames. Mentioning Suzaku is a bird of fire, Dogramag was stunned that the two performed a unison raid. While holding Suzaku's weapon, Natsu attacked with a fire dragon slash. They managed to injure and bring Dogramag down, even though the two were clearly exhausted. Dogramag couldn't accept that he was defeated by humans. Natsu responded that it was because Dogramag was looking down from up top, so he couldn't understand. Whether human or dragon, they were still alive. They could be friends, parents, or children, but their strength remained unchanged. The Earth Dragon God fell to the ground and realized why Ignia was obsessed with him. As Dogramag's body gradually disappeared, he mentioned that the seeds have been sown. The age of humans would soon end, and everything depended on Ignia now. Dogramag then completely disintegrated. Natsu noted that the labyrinth was falling apart. Suzaku knew it was bad since he couldn't move anymore. Natsu was also struggling to stand too. He said he just needed some fighting spirit, but then a rock fell on his head. One by one, rocks fell on them. But suddenly, the rocks floated before they could reach Suzaku, thanks to Misaki. Misaki made the rocks levitate, surprising Suzaku when he saw her. She informed him that Kirin and the others had escaped, and only the two of them were left. Haku urged him to hurry and pointed the way. Suzaku then glanced at Natsu and asked if they could help him as well. Misaki smiled and said, "Of course, no one would be left behind." The entire labyrinth collapsed, and the building crumbled. The Fairy Tale Guild members were worried, wondering if it was an earthquake. They said they needed to protect Eleftheria, and Gray helped him. Celine was still lying on the ground, and Kyria told her not to die on them. Meanwhile, Sai ran to escape. Gajeel was irritated, but Lily said to leave him be. Wendy hugged Carla, assuring her that everything would be okay, though Carla complained about the pain. Hikage noticed the labyrinth collapsing, and Lucy couldn't help but worry about Natsu, staring at the entrance. One by one, the members of the Diabolos Guild emerged. Misaki and Haku were the last to come out, having turned Natsu and Suzaku into dolls. After emerging from the labyrinth, they were returned to their normal forms, which delighted the Fairy Tale Guild members as well as Kyria. The entire labyrinth eventually collapsed, and the earthquake affected the entire continent of Giltina. In other areas, the impact was so strong that it reshaped the land. They wondered what the earthquake and the collapse of the labyrinth mean. At that moment, there was no way for them to find out. They proceeded to the Diabolos Wizard Guild's place to treat Eleftheria and Celine. Finally, peace seemed to be restored between the two guilds, or at least that was the idea. But Laxus and Kirin still hadn't stopped. Laxus asked if it still wasn't enough. Kirin replied that he couldn't get serious earlier because of the cramped space. Lucy intervened to stop Laxus. Natsu was pleased and challenged them too. Kirin said that even Misaki would be more serious if the space was more open. Misaki smiled and admitted defeat, saying that the only girlies she knew who were stronger than her were Urza and Celine. Urza was surprised. Wendy asked if she was the #1 female wizard in Giltina. Haku was impressed and said he's gonna pat her head, but Carla stopped him. Scallion claimed that as a wizard, she was indeed the strongest among the women. Kyria was annoyed by this. Madmol acknowledged that there was an alchemist guild there that was on par with the wizard guild. Happy was surprised to hear this. Lily knew it was the power to transform matter into other things. Gajeel and Gray suddenly realized something. Gray mentioned that he had seen a man like that. Gajeel was irritated that God Serena was with that guild. Urza remarked that he was supposed to be dead. Gajeel replied that he was alive. Wendy suddenly declared that God Serena was indeed dead, surprising everyone, including herself. It was actually Irene who spoke. She stated that God Serena was indeed dead and that Nainhart's magic didn't lie. Historia was a spell that only gave form to the deceased. The living could not be materialized as Historia. She was certain that someone from Alakatasia had confirmed his death. Speaking of resurrecting the dead, Kieran mentioned that it was similar to their comrade Wraith. He told the fairy tale members they killed him. Laxus asked if he also wanted to be killed. Scallion explained that Wraith had achieved what they called entering nirvana, and Madmol mentioned he had left a will for them. Kyria added that Wraith was essentially dead. Lucy was shocked to hear they had a dead guildmate. Misaki mentioned that the dead they saw might be the result of human transmutation. Gray was curious about this. They didn't know the details yet, but alchemy had the potential to revive the dead. Suzaku said that the conversation had drifted, and it was time to discuss what was next. Haku was excited and said they were friends now, so it's fine if they get along, while Natsu declared that if they wanted a rematch, he was ready. Lucy was irritated, saying the subject was complex. Suzaku stated that Fairy Tail's goal was to defeat the 5 dragon gods. In other words, they intended to kill Selene. But their objective was to protect Selene so she could create the world she desired. The Fairy Tail members reflected, realizing that made them look like the bad guys. Lucy asked what kind of world Selene wanted. Scallion answered that Selene wanted to eliminate all dragons and live peacefully as a human. Despite this, Urza mentioned that Selene had caused problems and tragedies in various worlds. Gray added that it wasn't simple to trust her. Kyria brought up how Selene had helped them in the Labyrinth. Natsu suddenly interjected, saying he gets it. It meant they were all wrong. It didn't matter if one was human or dragon. They needed to look at the heart before making a decision. That was the only way to move forward. Elf Sirius smiled at this. After the conversation between the Fairy Tale and Diabolo's guild members, they visited the bathhouse. Lucy and Wendy were delighted to see the public bath inside. Carla remarked that their guild also had one, along with a pool. Kyria was already inside and said that while enemies yesterday are still enemies today, they should relax for now. Lucy was surprised, thinking Kyria had mixed up her words, but she thanked her anyway. Urza, now back to having long hair, caught Misaki's attention. Urza mentioned that Lucy's friend, who was a hairdresser, had helped her. Misaki was impressed, saying the hairdresser must be really skilled to regrow hair. Kyria, irritated, commented that it was impressive if such people really existed. Misaki suddenly apologized for what happened to Urza's hair, admitting she hadn't realized how important it was to her. Urza reassured her that it was fine, and there was no need to apologize since they were in a battle. Misaki stood up and asked if it was okay for her to wash Urza's hair, saying it was her specialty. Embarrassed, Urza agreed. Misaki used her magic to fix Urza's hair, gathering soap and massaging it into Urza's scalp, giving her a thorough shampoo. Misaki added that since Urza was still young, she needed to keep her skin clean. Urza was surprised when Misaki suddenly used magic to wash her entire body. Misaki then turned to Lucy and asked if she wanted to try it as well. Lucy quickly declined. However, Kyria forcefully pulled Lucy and volunteered to help her. Lucy resisted, saying she could manage on her own. Kyria, determined, used her blade dragon magic to shred the towel covering Lucy's body. "Relax," said Kyria, assuring that she hadn't cut Lucy's skin. She boasted about her washing skills, saying that when it came to dirty skin, she went straight to the blemish source and eliminated it. Lucy, anxious and nearly in tears, couldn't resist as Kyria targeted her. Although it was painful, Lucy admitted that it felt okay. Kiria then called out to Wendy, referring to her as Flat Chest, and beckoned her over to wash as well. Wendy asked Carla if it didn't feel great to bathe there, but Carla knew she was pretending not to hear Kiria's call. Suddenly, another person joined in. It was the moon god dragon, Celine. They were all surprised, especially since her wounds seemed healed. She told them not to underestimate a dragon's ability to heal. Wendy noticed Celine's guild mark and asked if she had indeed joined Diabolos. Misaki offered to wash Celine's body too, and she agreed. Celine was delighted with Misaki's washing, while Lucy remained speechless. Kiria told Urza and Lucy not to be on edge and just relax. Celine stood up and said she wanted to talk to everyone since they were all there, but they still seemed uneasy around her. Urza replied that if she wanted to talk, it didn't need to be in that place. They decided to gather in one spot. Urza added that if Celine meant the men, they could hear her through the gate. Lucy was surprised by this. In the men's bath, Natsu was startled to hear a voice coming from the bath. Happy identified it as Celine's voice. Gajeel was surprised that they were connected by a gate. Gray questioned what she was doing, and Laxus asked why she would do this while they were all bathing. Lily mentioned that it wasn't necessary to talk there, but Celine replied that it was fine. It's important to socialize in the nude, Celine stated. Gray pondered this, while Gajeel remarked that Gray was practically naked all year round. Happy asked what she wanted to discuss. First, Celine stated that she did not regret anything she had done and had no plans to apologize for it. Urza was surprised by her admission. Celine explained that she had done what was necessary to survive. They asked if she was referring to Alintier. Celine responded that it wasn't just Alintier. She had destroyed countless worlds. The more she distorted a world, the more she saw its other face. Wendy wondered what she meant by that. Celine explained that it was the power hidden within those worlds. Natsu was curious about what kind of power it was. Celine revealed that it was the weapon to defeat the 5 dragon gods, something she had been searching for a long time. Lucy asked if she was supported by Mimi and the others in Alintier. Celine said that they were just her troops in Alintier and that she had used a gate to free them from prison. Happy suddenly realized that Natsu had disappeared. Celine continued, saying that ironically, the power she sought was in Earthland all along. Was it in the Labyrinth? They asked. Celine clarified it was the site of the dragon's heart sealed within the labyrinth that knew where it was. However, Wendy mentioned that the heart was destroyed by the Earth Dragon God. Therefore, the location of that power remained unknown, Carla added. Lucy asked if Elefsiria know where that power is. Suddenly, he answered that unfortunately, he did not know. The boys were shocked by his sudden appearance. Gray asked if he was still injured. Hikage thanked everyone, saying Elefsiria was better now. Elefsiria remarked that he never expected to speak with one of the 5 dragon gods. Celine echoed the sentiment, saying she didn't expect to talk to him either. Meanwhile, it turns out that Natsu had been swimming underwater, and he was surprised to see so many cakes above. Elefsiria remarked that Celine must not have forgotten how many innocent people she had killed. Celine retorted that the feeling was mutual, asking how many innocent dragons Elefsiria had killed. Misaki and Kiria, who had eaten the dragons, remained silent. She then said that this was no longer the issue. Gajeel pointed out that the war between humans and dragons had ended 400 years ago. Celine stated that she and Elefsiria were in the same boat, but he could not accept it coming from her. Celine got annoyed and asked why only humans were allowed to kill dragons. Everyone was shocked and nervous, except Lucy, who suddenly started laughing. Irritated, Celine asked what was so funny. Lucy explained that she wasn't laughing at her and apologized, saying that something was tickling her feet. She wanted it to stop, then suddenly, Natsu appeared in the girls' bath, proving that the boys' and girls' baths were connected. Lucy was shocked to see that it was Natsu and that he was carrying her in his shoulder. The girls quickly covered themselves and called him a pervert. Urza calmed them down, saying he was a friend and that wasn't the problem. Celine commented that while there might be differences between men, women, humans, and dragons, at least they could talk. She urged Eleftheria to listen to her, stating that it was also for his 100-year wish. Let's take a flashback to Gieltina, 100 years ago, during the time when the first wizard guild, Magia Dragon, was established. The wizards were pleased with their guild because, within its walls, even the Inquisition officers couldn't touch them. If anyone messes with a guild wizard, they would face the entire guild. This led to a decrease in witch hunts. One of them suggested to their boss, Eleftheria, that it was time for wizards to band together. Eleftheria, irritated, reminded them to call him Master. The man was shocked. Eleftheria clarified that they weren't just rabble of wizards. If they didn't function as an organized group, they wouldn't be recognized as part of society. This statement puzzled them, as they had always been persecuted as wizards. Eleftheria explained that they needed to realize the true meaning behind the power they called magic. This power wasn't given to curse or harm people, but was bestowed by the gods to help those without power. If they didn't use their power for others, they would have no future. He then showed them a request from a woman in the town of Sambutsu. They were curious and asked what it was. Eleftheria said it was a request to resolve an issue using magic, and of course, it came with a reward. This made them wonder if she wasn't afraid of them, while another got excited about the reward. Thus, the basic system of wizard guilds was established. The guild grew larger, and their jobs increased. But one day, a dragon appeared. They couldn't believe it because they thought all dragons had been wiped out, as stated in Ishgar. They were surprised to find a dragon in Gieltina and decided to kill it to showcase the power of magic. When a wizard returned to the guild, he reported that Marion and Broyd had died. They were killed by the dragon, and their magic didn't work against it. Because of this, other guild members volunteered to confront the dragon, considering it their enemy as it had killed their comrades. One by one, they lost their lives trying to fight it. And so, he learned from the old folklore magic that brought about the downfall of dragons. This is the magic wielded to slay dragons, known as Dragon Slayer magic. Eleftheria mentioned that many years were spent developing and mastering this magic. Irene commented that it wasn't easy to learn Dragon Slayer magic alone, without any enchantments. Eleftheria added, just when he was becoming capable of properly fighting dragons, the 6 dragon gods suddenly appeared. The moon dragon god Selene, the fire dragon god Ignia, the water dragon god Merkphobia, the wood dragon god Aldoran, the gold dragon god Viernes, and the earth dragon god Dogramag. Hundreds and thousands fell before them. Even though Eleftheria managed to defeat Dogramag, it came at the cost of his heart being devoured. Yet, in the end, Dogramag still didn't die. And because Eleftheria lost his strength to fight, he entrusted the task of killing these 5 dragon gods to the future generations. Since then, no one has completed this task in 10 years. Consequently, it was called the 10-year quest, then the 20-year quest, and eventually the 50-year quest as the years went by. Now, it's known as the 100 Years Quest. Today, the Wizards of Fairy Tale have managed to seal 2 of the dragon gods, and now the 3rd one stands before them. Selene reassured them, stating she was already dead. They were shocked and asked what she meant by that. Didn't she mention earlier about the healing power of dragons? Even the men on the other side were surprised by her statement. Selene explained that wounds inflicted by one dragon upon another dragon could not be healed. This is why the 5 of them avoided fighting each other. Even if they fought and one emerged victorious, the wounds sustained would never heal, making them easy targets for other dragons next time. She stood up and showed her body, explaining that while she might look fine now, the wounds she received from Ignia will soon claim her life. It seemed they had misunderstood her, as she actually liked humans. Eleftheria was irritated by her words. Selene admitted that although she had killed many people, It wasn't because they were human, but because they were enemies intent on killing her. Whether it was a cat or a dragon, she did what she had to in order to survive. She thought humans were foolish for constantly fighting to prove their superiority over others. They hate and kill each other, failing to make the most of their short lives. And yet, they have flourished. The fleeting lives of humans overflow with vitality. Despite their foolishness, they love each other and dream of the future. Aren't dragons the same way? Her words brought a smile to their faces. Celine added that she had decided the age of dragons was over and she wished to live as a human. This was unexpected for Eleftheria. However, Celine continued, to create the world she dreamed of, Ignia and Viernes had to be eliminated because they had no intention of caring for humans. This was why she wanted to obtain that weapon. That evening, Celine spoke with Suzaku. She remarked how refreshing the night breeze felt after bathing. Suzaku remained silent. Celine asked what he wanted to discuss. He replied that it was about Kernugi and what had happened to him. Celine responded that it was in the past, something they had already discussed. She admitted to having killed many people, but she didn't begrudge anyone for her son's death. She stated that Kernugi was a warrior who died as a warrior in battle. Suzaku questioned if that didn't sound heartless. She believed that's one area where dragons couldn't defeat humans. She knew she should love him, but she accepted his death as such. Then she said, she felt Kernugi's presence within Suzaku. She even feels as if he was there. Suzaku was surprised by this. Celine smiled and reassured him that it was okay. She mentioned that there was still something she wanted to do before she died, which piqued Suzaku's curiosity. Celine then looked into the distance and spoke to someone. She knew someone was there. Suzaku was shocked because they were supposed to be alone. The woman was surprised that Celine could see her. Suzaku asked if there was someone there. She smiled and Celine answered that there was a spirit-like presence. Suzaku thought it was like Wraith, but he wondered why he couldn't see it. Celine said it was a naked woman and asked if he wanted to see her. Suzaku immediately closed his eyes and felt embarrassed. He said he was leaving and started to run. "Do take your time," he said. The woman then said she was actually wearing clothes and asked if she looked naked. Celine smiled and said it was just a joke. She then asked who she was. She noticed she had been inside Wendy all this time. "Not bad," she replied. "You caught on to me." The woman introduced herself as Irene Belsirian. Celine was surprised because Belsirian was a dragon's name. Irene explained that she got the surname from Belsirian, the sage dragon. Celine thought about the sage dragon and remembered that Eleftheria also called himself the law dragon. Irene recounted that Belsirian could be found in old books passed down by people. It was natural in the study of dragon slayer magic. After all, he was the dragon involved with the first dragon slayers. However, she had her thoughts about the law dragon business. To her, the old man didn't seem very wise. Celine agreed, saying she had a point. She remembered that 400 years ago, a queen of a country invented dragon slayer magic. There were rumors about the mother of dragon slayer magic. Irene asked if Celine had been wandering for 400 years. She said no, there were various reasons for what happened, and she spared her the details. She shared that she lost her body and enchanted her persona into Wendy. Celine was curious if Irene could coexist with Wendy, and Irene just answered, "I suppose." Celine smiled and said it looked like there was no need for her unfinished business anymore. Irene was puzzled and asked what she meant by that. All this time, Wendy had an immense amount of hidden magic power, too much for her capacity. Celine thought she might have been possessed by some kind of yokai, which made her consider using a gate to remove it. If they could coexist, then there wouldn't be an issue for her to intervene in. Irene asked if Celine was worried about Wendy. If so, then she was right in her thinking. Irene shared that she came from a country where dragons and humans lived together. Because of this, she understood how dragons viewed humans. Celine was surprised when Irene said that a dragon like her would be needed in the future. Therefore, she couldn't just die. Celine replied that she wasn't afraid of dying, having lived too long already. But Irene disagreed. She was referring to Celine's future of living as a human. Her face was full of hope. Celine was surprised by this. Irene added that she needed to live. Using her power over gates and her enchantment, their wishes would both come true. Celine was curious about Irene's wish. Suddenly, Irene raised her hand towards Celine and cast a spell. Celine wondered what she was doing. Irene was enchanting herself with the curse of a dragon's wound. She apologized to Wendy, asking her to bear it for a moment. Even though Wendy was asleep, it was clear she could feel what was happening. Celine couldn't believe Irene is using a wound's enchantment. This meant that their lives were now connected. Irene told Celine to listen to her wish. However, Celine was still astonished by what Irene had done. If she could do that, maybe she could just transfer the wound to the scoundrel lying around. Irene replied that it wasn't that simple. He could only transfer the wound to herself, or in this case, to Wendy. But now, she was temporarily separated from Wendy. At that moment, Irene intended to take herself to another world using the gate. Celine said that if she did that, she would die. Irene simply smiled. Celine couldn't believe that this was Irene's wish. Irene explained that she was already dead, but due to the magic power, even death wasn't an end for her. In that sense, she would become like a yokai. Irene remembered that Celine had mentioned she had a child. Irene shared that she too had a daughter. However, she had despised her and tried to kill her. She admitted she was not a good mother. It was only when she died that she finally developed some motherly feelings for her. The one thing she could take some pride in. Celine was surprised by this. Irene continued that while she remained in that world in her current form, she unexpectedly saw her daughter again. And when she saw her, she realized the magnitude of what she had tried to steal from her and the extent of her own sins. She couldn't help but cry because of this. Celine asked if she shouldn't be watching over her daughter. Irene said she couldn't. She had no right to do so. Besides, if the current situation continued, it would affect Wendy. Therefore, she asked Celine to kill her. Only Celine could do it. Celine thought about it and said she wouldn't hesitate. That's why Irene had approached her. "Does that mean you would die to atone for your sins?" Celine asked. She replied, "Not quite." She cried and said that to prove herself as a mother, she couldn't pretend she didn't die back then. "I see," Celine responded, and they thanked each other. Celine then used her magic to take Irene to another world, and Wendy felt the pain while still asleep. Suddenly, tears rolled down Wendy's face, and Irene thanked her for everything. Even if it's another world, there's no meaning in a place with magic power. Celine asked, "Why is that?" Irene answered, "Because her magic power was so strong that while carrying the wound, she could transfer it to someone innocent. She would die, but at the same time, she might also harm others." Irene asked Celine if she knew of a world where her enchantments wouldn't work. Celine answered that she knew the perfect place. With that, everything would be over, and she would disappear. Irene thought of her daughter, Urza, and wished for her to live strong for her sake. Meanwhile, in Idolas, Sugar Boy was circling around until Hughes told him to stay still. He replied that he couldn't help himself. Hughes was annoyed with him, while Byro silenced them both. Just then, Mystigan came out of a door. The excitement on the faces of the three was evident, as they had been waiting for him. Mystigan smiled. They asked if it was a boy or a girl. They were referring to his and Urza's child, and he said it was a girl. Her name was Irene. Urza couldn't help but shed tears of joy. The next day, Wendy was watching the sunrise alone when Urza arrived, commenting on how early she was up. Wendy was surprised by her presence. Urza asked if she had trouble sleeping in a different bed. Wendy replied that she didn't, but she was unsure of what to say. Urza became curious and asked if something was bothering her. Wendy thought for a moment and then said it was about Irene. Urza was surprised by the sudden mention of Irene and wondered where that came from. She thought before replying that she was a sad person. However, in truth, not a day passed without thinking about her. Wendy was taken aback. Urza explained that the master was the only person she could truly call a parent, and that would never change. But ever since she met the woman who claimed to be her mother, she couldn't help but think about the possible future that she could have built with her. She knew it was wrong to think that way, but Wendy reassured her that it wasn't wrong at all. Wendy admitted that she didn't know her own parents and came from hundreds of years ago. She continued to explain, but she couldn't finish her sentence because Urza's demeanor changed, and she called Irene a scoundrel. Urza said her mother brought calamity to their guild, and she couldn't forgive her, considering her an enemy. Wendy was surprised by this. However, Urza added that the face Irene showed in the end was very tender and kind. Wendy was happy to hear this and said that Irene was surely watching over her from somewhere. But Urza declared that she didn't want that and didn't need it, because Irene was already in her heart. Even though she was an enemy and a miserable person, she was still her mother, and Urza could never forget her. Wendy thought to herself that she was thankful for everything Irene had done for her. Back at the Diabolos Guild, Natsu was trying to stop Laxus and Kieran from fighting. Laxus told Natsu to shut up and said that Kieran didn't know how to accept defeat. Kieran retorted that it was because he wasn't really defeated, claiming he only used 10% of his power. But Laxus claimed he only used 5%. Kieran retracted his statement, saying he used 1/10 of his power instead. That's why Natsu was trying to stop them. Lucy was surprised that of all people, Natsu was the one trying to stop the fight. He said if they didn't stop, then he'd want to join in. Lucy was shocked and thought, why did she think any different? Gray was curious about what Natsu was doing. Carla asked if they shouldn't be more concerned about the confrontation in front of them. She was referring to the face-off between Celine and Eleftheria. Happy assured her that it was fine, as the two wouldn't fight. Carla hoped that was true. Eleftheria asked if the moon dragon god, Celine, would stop killing more people. Celine responded that she wouldn't harm them as long as they didn't harm her. He asked if she would kill anyone who posed a danger to her. She replied, of course. She just wanted to defend herself. Celine asked Misaki if what she said was wrong. Misaki replied that Celine had the right to defend herself. Eleftheria said it was too easy for people to kill each other. Celine asked if that was true, and Misaki said they had their reasons. Celine then said, I'll do what I can. Eleftheria was still upset, and Celine asked if there was anything else. Eleftheria asked if she knew where Viernes and Ignia were, but she said she didn't know. She asked if there was anything else. Eleftheria seemed unable to hold back any longer and shouted that Celine should apologize for the people she had killed, some of whom were his friends and precious comrades. Celine remained silent while the other fairy tale guild members watched. Hikage was concerned for Eleftheria. Eleftheria slammed his fist on the table, saying he understood there was no point in something like that. He knew Celine had to do what she did to survive, just like how they kill animals do to survive. He understood that. He couldn't help but cry, saying he could never forget the faces of his friends who were killed by dragons. He admitted they were in the wrong, but he just couldn't forget them. Suddenly, Celine stood up, surprising Kiria and Misaki. She said she would apologize. However, Eleftheria stopped her. He said he was already miserable enough as it was. If she apologized, he didn't finish his sentence because Celine interrupted with, "My bad." Eleftheria was taken aback by it, and the Fairy Tale Guild members commented on how casual it was. Eleftheria seemed furious, but then suddenly laughed. He couldn't stop laughing, which surprised everyone. Celine wondered if there was something wrong with her apology. Misaki couldn't answer. Eleftheria called Celine and suddenly bowed. He asked her to allow him to apologize as well. He said that humans have unreasonably stolen the lives of dragons. In that sense, they were the same. So, he apologized to her. Both the Fairy Tale and Diabolo's guild members were pleased with this outcome. Natsu remarked that this meant the third dragon god was sealed. Celine was confused, thinking they had already discussed that when they were in the bath. Misaki confirmed that both dragons and humans were similar. Celine smiled and agreed. Now, it seemed possible for them to get along, but it would require respectful communication. Elefsiria agreed, but he pointed out that Viernes and Ignia were still threats. Not because they were dragons, but because their power was enough to destroy humankind. Celine brought up the world's strongest weapon that could defeat even the dragon gods. Where was Athena? She asked. Everyone was curious about this Athena she mentioned. Was that the weapon recorded in Elefsiria's heart? The name sounded like a woman's. Elefsiria explained that it was a weapon created by his former apprentice, but even he didn't know where it was. Celine acknowledged this. Gajiel asked if this Athena they mentioned could really defeat a dragon god. Lily thought it seemed possible. He wondered if a human could create such a weapon. Elefsiria was curious about where she got this information. Celine said she had traveled to different worlds, even worlds similar to theirs. Elefsiria was surprised and asked if there was an Athena in other worlds. Celine replied that no, Athena was missing from all worlds except this one. Elefsiria described it as a negative remnant of humankind. Natsu dismissed this, saying they just needed to give this dragon a beatdown. But Celine countered that the gold dragon god, Viernes, cannot be beaten down. Viernes is just a concept, a dragon that exists, but also does not.